Okay, so, hello, I am Dagrin, and this is a tutorial vid for Gunstar Heroes. This will cover easy mode, and more specifically, it will cover the fire chaser weapon combination. I'm gonna try to at least go over where lightsaber does have similar strats in comparison, but there's a number of different strategies involved with that particular playstyle. So before we get started here, we have 4 different difficulties. Again, we're doing easy mode here. Maybe at some point I might do a tutorial for normal mode. Not sure about expert mode, but since pretty much every strat is more or less the same in expert mode. But easy has a few different strategies. And it kind of is needed to actually go over a few things, some important things to document over it. Anyway, now we're at the configuration screen here. This allows us to change our weapon, our control scheme. Generally, I just stick with default. Like, it really doesn't matter what you choose, but I just stick with default. It's easier to decipher. All you have to know is that, well, I'll go over what select does, but shot is simple enough, as is jump. So, alright, we're gonna get started here. I'm not gonna waste really a whole lot of time. But as soon as we start the game, we have 2 different playstyles here, as well as 2 different looking characters to kind of signify which sort of shot that you actually choose. Now, you don't get much time to read this, but yellow here kind of demonstrates what free shot is all about. But you can move and fire at the same time with free shot, which sounds really good, and it is. Lightsaber users use this mode, or this particular playstyle. However, fire and chaser use a completely different shot, which is the fixed shot, and allows you to fire your weapon and not move around, and that's very beneficial for Flame Chaser, and you'll kind of get an idea why. If you don't quite understand why in easy mode, you will in harder difficulties, for sure. However, this tutorial will detail Fire Chaser, so we will go with the fixed shot here. Now that we've chosen our type of playstyle, we now have to choose what our starting weapon is, and generally in every situation you want to choose flame first. Fire. But detailing what your weapons are, you have the force, you have the lightning, you have the chaser, and then you have the flame, or the fire. Fire has good synergy with lightning and chaser, so by choosing it first, we don't have to worry about weapons actually screwing us over at the start. We know that we could actually get something decent to at least hold us off until we actually get our desired weapon of choice. So let's choose fire. I'm just going to call it flame. It's just easier that way. So now that we've chosen our weapons, we now have to choose between 4 different stages. This is the pink stage, this is the green stage, this is the orange stage, and this is the black stage. For those that do not know, black stage in particular has the famous Dice Palace, which is considered to be the biggest roadblock for most runners, and on harder difficulties, it's not really viable to do it first, just because you have to actually fight a mini-boss, which, without your primary weapon combo, is a slower fight, significantly. But in easy mode, it's actually faster to choose black stage first. However, before we do that, I'm actually going to go to the pink stage and just demonstrate the basic controls. So, you can see here, the fire button allows you to fire a weapon, as we've kind of discussed before. And you can see how I'm moving right, but he's not moving. This is what fixed shot is all about. Free shot can actually move and fire simultaneously, but that's not what fixed shot can do. But again, like I said, it might sound slower, but with my weapon combo, that is the way you have to utilize this. That's the way you have to utilize the Fire Chaser. Now, the C button is the jump mechanic here. But if you press the C button again, the jump button command, you do this thing called a kick. You do this kick. This is a physical attack, and on easy mode, it's your primary highest damage dealer. If you hold up while jumping, you actually do a slightly higher jump, and this is nice to have to keep your forward momentum going here. Another little interesting thing about fixed shot is if you hold down after a jump, or if you hold down while midair and you kick, you'll actually do a downward kick instead of a regular kick like this. And this allows your kick hitbox to extend lower. So, say for instance, well, actually, I'll detail that when we get to Pink Stage. What was I gonna mention? Oh yeah, there's also the slide mechanic. So if you duck and you press C, you do a slide attack. There's another type of slide attack where if you do a full half circle and fire, you do a slide like that. It's very difficult, very difficult to chain it too, but it also makes you slide further. So it's very nice, and it has a lot of priority too, but it's very hard to chain it. So oftentimes you're not going to see that attack get used at any point in the, well, aside from a couple of fights. Well, more prominently, just one fight that you may or may not get to fight. But we'll go into that a little further. I'm going to actually just go over here because I need to demonstrate one more thing, which is what the A button does, the select button. So here we go. We actually got our weapon right here. I'm actually gonna... It's gonna be hard to kind of demonstrate this with all this chaoticness going on here. Okay, so now that we got rid of him, let's discuss what the select button does. This is the A button in my case. But you can see, pay careful attention to the two weapons I have up there. You'll notice one's flashing, the other one's not. I'm now using the Chaser weapon. Now I'm going to select it. I'm back to regular fire. Now I've selected again. I have the full weapon combo of the two of them. And this might seem kind of pointless to use this sort of thing in a lot of situations, because obviously Flame Chaser is obviously what you want to go with, but there are certain situations where we want to select one of the singular weapons because Flame Chaser just is not an effective weapon to use in the fight. We'll go on into those fights. They're very rare. Very rare fights. I think, in fact, there may even be only one fight that I might do this for. But hopefully we'll cover that. Whoops. But that's going to basically cover the basics right there. So now let's actually talk about the run itself. And hopefully I didn't dawdle too much talking about nonsense there. Okay, so now we're going to select and actually do what we actually do in the run. So like I said, you had the 4 stages here. I did select pink there at the start just to kind of give myself time to demonstrate all the basic functions and controls and whatnot. Now, though, we're going to start doing what we actually do in the run, and that is select the black stage. Again, like I said, this is where Dice Palace is. These other 3 stages, there is some luck involved, especially in green stage, but as well as maybe a tiny little bit in pink stage, but black stage is where the majority of your lost time due to circumstances of the level come into play. So we runners of this game like to choose this one first. There was a time where I didn't, but we're not going to talk about that time. So let's just get into it. So to start things off, the first thing you want to know is about these mechanical birds. Okay, so actually, before I even talk about the bird, we have these minions right here. They can do a number of things. They can run up to you and grab you and just hold you down until one of the other guys comes in and kicks you. They can throw you, which is also really, really bad. Both of these things are really bad. Or they can throw a grenade, like one of them just did. That little circular skull thing there. That's an explosive grenade. They can do that. They can also like jump up and do a kick, and this has a crazy amount of priority. And the hitbox of their kicks is really, really dumb. Like, you could be way ahead of them, and you'll still get kicked by them, even though they're way past you, and it's pretty stupid. But they can also just stand there and do whatever. That's kind of the ideal thing you want to have happen. These flying machines, they just fly around and shoot lasers at you. They're not really a big deal. But that kind of details the enemies. But as for these mechanical birds here, if you continually kick them, they actually drop more weapons. Yeah, like that. I mean, I didn't really show it off that well because he dropped one weapon. I kicked him again for like maybe a few frames, and he dropped this chaser here. But then I kicked him again, and he dropped another one. The pink stage kind of demonstrates it a little bit better, how kicking the mechanical birds actually drops more weapons for you. Whatever weapon they drop out initially, like this force here, that's not the only weapon they actually drop. They can drop more than one. So if you don't get your ideal weapon, well, if you're trying to go for like optimal runs, obviously you want only the one that it initially drops to be the one that you grab. Of course, in this particular bird, if you do the stage optimally, the bird will drop the first weapon into this pit here. So generally, I don't bother even grabbing a weapon from this bird. I wait for the second bird, and this might sound like it doesn't make sense. It will make more sense because I'm about to come to our first mini boss here, and that's this guy right here. We need to kill this guy as soon as possible. And how we're going to do that is, while we're approaching him, we want to fire our weapon. Obviously, I didn't do that because I thought more about the safety of making sure these guys here, for instance, wouldn't become a problem. I actually might get grabbed by this guy. We'll see what happens, but if not, I'm going to immediately jump up and just continuously physical kick him. Again, like I said, physical kicks are very strong in this difficulty. Each frame of damage with the kick does like 100 damage each. Like, it is crazy damage output. You can see that's how fast he dies. In higher difficulties, the kick receives quite a damage reduction, and that's why it's not the most effective means of damage. It's arguable if normal mode it comes out even with your conventional weapons, but that is still something I have to test. But on easy mode, it is definitely your highest damage dealer. So now here, you want to do a few kicks and try to set yourself up with a high jump kick here so that you know you're going to get past this pit. You might get grabbed by one of these guys, maybe. If that happens, that kind of sucks, and maybe you might want to reset in that situation. But generally speaking, I tend to roll the dice and hope I don't get grabbed. Usually I'm okay. This is a good pattern I have right here anyways. And they didn't even do anything. So that mechanical bird right there, that's the mechanical bird I usually rely on a drop from. And the good news with easy mode, again, it doesn't really matter what you grab to start things off here. As long as you don't get a force here. And in fact, even if you do get a force, it's not the end of the world. Like, I actually think it doesn't even matter what weapon you get out of this. I just grab whatever I get and try to press on with it. And I'll kind of go more into why I do that just a tiny little bit here. We already have our weapon, so we don't need that weapon in there. I like to slide there. I like to slide down in that side there because trying to kick will just lead me to getting stopped by this guy, and that just stops my momentum moving forward. So I just opt for a slide there. And then I jump up here, and now I'm at a checkpoint here where I'm going to spawn a Black Phantom. He's going to drop down right about here, and I'm going to try and utilize my weapon and do as much conventional damage as I can. Physical damage will just cause his iframes to trigger much faster. It's actually not an ideal form of attack against this Phantom. Oops. Okay, that was really bad. Okay, that was absolutely terrible. That is not how I'm supposed to do it, but you can see that utilizing the conventional weapon allows you to do some more damage to him. If he's also in the air, his iframes actually will not trigger, so keeping the Flame Chaser on him while he's in midair actually continues to damage him, and he will actually die in a single cycle if he jumps at all. If you catch him while he's in midair, you will be able to one-cycle him pretty easily. Alright, so now begins the really fun part of this level and why we choose this part of the level first. Here is Dice Palace. And you can see we got this board here and all these tile spaces. And it says, welcome to Dice Palace, you cannot get away, throw the die. You know what this means. We want to get the ideal rolls, but it's not very likely that it's going to happen. And this is why a lot of people have a bit of frustrating times even contemplating the idea of running this game at all. Because runs will pretty much, whether you're on a world record run or not, really does depend on this level, what kind of rolls you get. And each one of these spaces has a different fight attached to them, and some of them badly favor certain weapon types over others. If you are a lightsaber runner, for instance, there are certain tiles, like, say, Super Gondola or Pit, for example, where it just does not favor your weapon type, and you lose so much more time over, say, the weapon we have, which is the Flame Chaser. But to kind of detail each of these spaces, the first space here is the Valvalian fight. It looks like a yellow serpent. Then you have this space here, which is the Happy Item Room. You have this third space, which is the Timeron fight. And that's going to be somewhat of a recurring enemy. Slightly recurring enemy. Not really a recurring enemy by definition. He's you may get the chance to see him twice if you do roll that space, but anyways. The fourth space here is actually a rush and go mini game. It's not actually a fight. It's just a mini game of sorts. Then you have a fight, this space here, which is the Minion Soldier fight. This is considered to be a very awful space for a lot of runners. And most people try desperately to avoid this space at all costs. You have this space here, which is the Melon Bread fight, which is the exact opposite of Minion Soldier. Everybody wants this space. It's not hard to see why, but I'll go more into that space a little bit later. This space here is a Destroy space. And again, like the Rush and Go mini space, it's a mini game. It's just a simple little mini game, destroy a certain something, and it's a pretty funny space as well, how quickly you get through that one on easy mode. Then you have this top corner here. This is the Pit fight. Again, like I said, it's one of those fights that heavily favors Flame Chaser over Lightsaber, and I'll kind of go more into why in just a little bit here. This space here is another Rush and Go minigame. It's different from this one, though. And Again, I'll go into how it's different a little bit later. Then here's another happy item space. And in this space here is a fight with a phantom. Yes, and not just any phantom, one with a lot more health. This space here is a fight with something called the Vortex space. This is another fight that I think heavily favors lightsaber or Flame Chaser over the lightsaber dual combination. And then you have the no gun space, which, much like the Minion Soldier fight, this is considered to be one of most runners' most dreaded space. This is the curry and rice fight, where you have no gun and you have to rely on physicals and throwing attacks. And like I said, most people hate this space. Well, I will have some pretty unfortunate news for a lot of people, but again, I will go more into that a little bit later. I cannot pronounce the name of the enemy in this particular space, but I can't. He's basically like some sort of jelly boss or some sort. It's still a relatively very, very fast and simple fight. And then you have this space here, which is the Super Gondola. And again, this fight is also a hugely long fight for anything. In fact, it's a very long fight even with Flame Chaser. In general, you do not want that space. But I'll go more into that just a little bit here. Then you have our final happy item room here. Again, really solid space. And then you have the worst space of this entire thing. You could go through this entire... This is the way back space. And what the way back space is a space that takes you all the way back to the start. Awful. Literally the last space right before the end. You get hit by this space, it's instant reset. You're going to lose a minute at least, probably a minute and a half, more than likely. The only way you don't lose more than a minute on this entire stage, hitting this space here, would be, say, if you got like many one rolls. Because at that point, then the way back space is just one more nuisance. Like, oh my goodness, you go through this entire section up here, for instance, and you get nothing but one rolls, and you land on this thing. Well, now if you even get like something, say like a 3 roll, you already know you're in the clear to get past at least a few more dice rolls before finally getting back to the boss space. Thankfully, this space only has one use out of it, so if you get hit by it and sent back to the start, you can do the entirety of Dice Palace again and not have to worry about landing on this space again a second time. Still, really, really awful space. Like, this is the worst space in the entire thing, and yet another example of why this stage is done first. And then, of course, the boss space, which I should not have to explain. So, now, to kind of discuss how each of these fights go, I am going to start a few pre-recordings of just kind of describing how each of the fights look, because obviously a single playthrough is not going to cover all of these fights. Like, you're not going to see all of these fights in an actual playthrough. Otherwise, it just winds up being a 100% run, which is already rare enough to accomplish. It's probably the rarest thing you can get in a run. And it's basically a meme category at this point. But let's open up this folder here. I got a number, pretty much a pre-recording for every single space, and kind of just detailing all the little, every single space. Oops. Alright, a second. Probably should. Okay, there. Alright, so you pretty much missed it, but let's start that again. So this is the first space here. This is the Valvalian fight. And this is what it looks like. And you see this is yellow little serpent. His movement pattern is completely random. It's a pretty short space, but Sadly, with lightsaber, it's a little bit finicky. He can do a number of things that can make you lose time, and again, given lightsaber's limited range, it's extremely difficult to attempt to challenge and get optimal damage off of him. Now, in the case of Flame Chaser, you don't have that disadvantage, but it is a laggier fight. But look how laggier this fight is. And this is much laggier, so it's a longer space just because of that alone. Still not the worst space you can get, but again, you generally do not want this space, even if it is a pretty fast space to clear. But that's kind of how you have to deal with the Valvalian space. So, that being said, if you do not have Flame Chaser, you're pretty much forced to just use whatever weapon you have and try to do as much damage as you can. Again, it's not a space that I recommend getting if you do not have your ideal weapon. Now, the first happy item room. This is the second space, and this is the contents that will be in that space. You have a Force, you have a Lightning, you have a Chaser, and you have some health. So let's say you do not get your ideal weapon combo at the start of the Black Stage. If you land on this space, this is your opportunity to get your ideal weapon combination and continue on with the Dice Palace. And I mean, if you need the emergency health, there, you have some emergency health. But ideally, ideally you want this space just because it has pretty much every single weapon that you can grab a hold of, at least as far as more optimal weapon combos are concerned. If you want Flame Chaser, there's your Chaser. If you want Lightsaber, there's your Lightning. And let's say you're one of the few people who likes Chaser and Lightning, for instance. Well, then you can just ditch Flame altogether, and there's your Lightning Chaser. It's a perfect room to get in all situations if you need the preferred weapon combo. And it's a very, very short space. Okay, so let's just make one more mention before we go any further here. To have the ideal Dice Palace, you need to at least have a certain number of rolls, and every single item room has to be visited during the course of these optimal rolls. So keep that in mind. If you want the optimal Dice Palace, happy item rooms are very key and integral to allow that to happen, because they're just a much quicker space to get through compared to pretty much any other space. But now that we've talked about that, I will now move on to the Timeron fight. This fight is handled the same exact way as no matter what your weapon combo is. But what's going to happen here is I'm going to throw a weapon. I'm going to shoot a weapon directly up, and then jump up and kick him as I shoot it up. Okay, that kind of was hard for me to explain. Let's just do this one more time here. All right, so fight's about to load here, and what I do is I hold up, and okay, I hold up because you start this fight directly underneath Timeron. I hold up, I hold B, and all I have to press in this particular fight is the jump button. And this allows me to jump as high as possible and kick him at the peak of my jump, adding some extra physical damage. And then as soon as I recover from physical damage, or from the physical attack, I shoot another Flame Chaser directly up. And this allows me to optimize both damage with my conventional weapon as well as my kick attack. And that allows for a very quick kill in this fight. This is a fight that actually has a number of things like, this boss can do a number of things. You might see this this one little timer here. Oops. You might see there's his health value here. It's like at 189, so he's about to die. And then you have this timer here that's saying 02. How this fight actually works, he counts up to 10 seconds. And he starts doing his attack while he's doing this. When he reaches 10 seconds, he will rewind time backwards. And then cause all of his attacks to rewind backwards. So it's a fight that's actually very interesting, but it's one fight that you're not going to really experience in easy mode. Like, this is what I'm doing here is pretty much the optimal way of killing you. Let me just rewind that again. Taking what I've stated now, all I do is just hold up, B, and just constantly keep doing this over and over again. And that's kind of how the fight is done. So that's the timer on space. So that's the third space. Now, the second space, this is actually, the fourth space. This, like I mentioned, this is the rush and go space. The rush and go space is actually pretty complicated. Most people do not know how to deal with this particular minigame. But let's try to pause here. So, the goal here that you want to strive for is to get from this point here to the goal. Each time you punch one of these things, it makes one of the colors, platforms, grounds, and walls disappear. It's a pretty messy room. But, and I do say this, but it's actually a very simple minigame. And I'm going to have to describe kind of frame by frame here what I'm going to do here. So, for the sake of demonstrating purposes, I turn around here. And what I'm first going to do is I'm going to punch I'm going to activate and punch the thing. There's that activation. Now, because the thing is green, it makes all the green platforms disappear. Now I'm going to do this again to activate the blue platforms to disappear. So now, the strategy here that I'm going to employ is I want to go straight up and all the way to the right. That is the fastest way you can do this section, and it's very consistent. So what you do is you punch the thing twice to activate the blue, you jump up, do a midair punch to activate this one here, and sometimes you actually get 2 additional punches out of that, and it activates the yellow platform. And then you want to do that again to shut the thing down. That time I didn't get the double hit there, but even so, I still got the reds to open. Now I'm gonna punch one more time to activate green, and now I'm able to move towards the right and start making my way to the goal. Now this is the part that starts getting tricky, and a lot of people tend to kind of not know what to do here. Usually what ends up happening is they'll be baited to punch, they'll think that they have to hit this particular thing here in order to activate and move forward. But in fact, and I'm pretty sure it's because the hitbox of your punch is actually standing far further back than it really should be, graphically speaking. Either that or the punch extends so far forward that you actually punch this thing. I can't remember what exactly causes it, but usually what people tend to do is they tend to try to punch this thing, and it ends up activating the blue platform, and by doing that, you fall down instead of actually putting yourself in a position to advance forward like this. So by getting up to this red wall here, you're able to punch this either one of these 2 things and not risk falling down, as long as you're holding right. There you go. You can see, because it was this thing right here. I punched this thing, even though graphically speaking, it doesn't make sense that I can hit it. But I was able to punch it from way forward there. But you can see it takes all the blue platforms out. If I was more in the middle, I would fall directly down, and that's not a good situation to be in. But I didn't, and this is also something I'm going to do again. And yeah, you can see I'm punching. I think I punched 3 times there. And once I do that, I know I can move forward. Now I'm going to do this again. And this one's very critical, again, because if I'm not against that wall, I'm going to fall down again. So again, get right up to that wall and then punch. And then all you need is a single punch. And then you move over. And before you fall down here, you got to punch this thing again to get this green platform here to appear, and that allows you to prevent falling down. You can see I'm moving here, and then I'm going to punch this one more or a couple more times to activate the red platform and then get to the goal. And that's how it's done. That is how Rush and Go minigame 1 is done. If you land on that space, that's what you got to do. Now let's look at how it looks like in real time. Yeah, that's how it looks like in real time. Obviously, it would be faster to not turn around like that. Like, you can... But I decided I wanted to, for the sake of this tutorial, show at least all the finer steps I take so that and demonstrate it properly so that you pretty much can get it and you don't need to ask any more questions about how do I do this? It doesn't make sense. But you can pretty much start punching and jump punching right away on that first little ascending section there on the left-hand side. Whew. Well, that was the Rush and Go minigame. Now we have to talk about one of the hardest fights in Dice Palace, and that's space number 5, the Minion Soldier fight. And this one's pretty awful. This is one of the few fights in the game where the slide attack that I mentioned being very difficult, the half circle attack fire button, is very key. You can see I'm doing it right there, but sometimes, okay, in fact, I should probably point that out now. You might have noticed the Minion Soldier actually goes to the left. And I think that's because he's facing towards the left. I think sometimes you might have to wait for him to start looking your direction. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you can see that slide attack there. That slide attack is very crucial to landing a very quick fight on this guy. It's a huge pain in the butt, though. It's a pain in the ass to do this fight, and most people dread even the thought of doing this fight because it's a lot of finicky things like what happens here can happen where you do the right thing, but he actually gets knocked back to the left instead of the right. Again, my theory is you got to let him look in your direction before you start attacking him. And if you don't do that, he might end up doing what he did to me right there. So that's something to kind of keep in mind going into this fight. And sometimes you might need some space when that happens. And sometimes the conventional weapon does just fine in situations like that. But again, the conventional weapon's not as fast as the physical damage output. Because again, this does 100 damage. You can even see it at the top there. Oh, okay, I don't agree with that. I was not... Oh, no, I was attacking. Yeah, I did attack. Okay. I was about to say that looks wrong, but then I did the physical attack. Okay. Yeah, that physical slide there. So again, in order to do that attack, it is half a circle with the direction you want to slide being the last directional input as well as the fire button. It's a very difficult combo to do. Again, this is not a sliding attack that you actually need to do in pretty much any fight. This is the fight that you'll want to learn the sliding attack specifically for. Also, throwing is not a good option, so that's a bit of a mistake I do in that recording. But again, can't expect a perfect fight in this particular case. Just a pretty awful space, no matter what way you want to slice it. Okay, so that's one of the worst fights of Dice Palace. Now we get to the sixth space, which is the melon bread space. This fight, everyone loves this fight. You're gonna find out why. But literally, all you have to do is just physical attack this guy. This is literally, doesn't matter what weapon combo you have, that is the way you deal with that fight. And of course, we have to end it with the best possible way to end the fight, with him literally looking directly at the screen and giving us the happy looking face there. For a fight that basically has nothing to it other than physical attacks, that is actually not a space you want to get if you want the optimal Dice Palace. And I'll kind of go more into that again, like I said, a little bit. It looks like the ideal kind of space, but it's actually not the most ideal space to get in an optimal Dice Palace. Like, say, the one I got in easy mode, or the one I got in hard mode, or normal mode. Oh, jeez. Okay. So, now, next up is the Destroy minigame. This is actually a pretty, this is also a very quick space, and this one's actually not a bad one to get. All you literally do is you immediately just jump in and kick that middle thing, and you literally destroy it instantly. Also pretty comical space to get. And this one actually is an alright one to get, especially in an optimal Dice Palace. It still does take a little bit of time just because of all the result screen scores and whatnot. But that's kind of that space. Nothing really much to describe. Which is unlike this next space here, which is the pit space. This is the top corner one, the top right corner. This is a space that is bad for lightsaber, and this is the reason why. You can see what you have to attack are these faces here, these circular red faces. But you can see how they're spread out. And this makes things very complicated for lightsaber, whereas with the Flame Chaser, you literally have the ability to long range attack. And look how I even managed to get the Flame Chaser to finish its attack pattern to move to the left side, and I literally finish it off by kicking it to just get that quick finishing blow on it. And that's why lightsaber or Flame Chaser is so beneficial in this fight. And it's a very, very quick space. You can see 16 seconds it took to get through that. That's a very, very quick space to do. Still not as fast to actually compare to, say, killing Melon Bread or destroying the thing from the previous two spaces. But the key thing is, what does the space do after that? Melon Bread just sits there smiling at you for a while, and then you have the results screen of Destroy space. Whereas you're not waiting on much to get past these faces in the pit space. You literally are just waiting on that thing to go away, and you're immediately gone. And that's what makes that space pretty valuable for Flame Chaser. So, kind of the whole, kind of the gist of this space, you want to avoid it with lightsaber, but with Flame Chaser, you actually desire to have that space, and especially if you know what to do in any given pattern. And in fact, it doesn't really matter what pattern you get with Flame Chaser. I know in this particular case, they spread out. Sometimes this guy right here will move alongside with this face right here, and they both lined up on the right side of this moving wall here. This just allows Flame Chaser to destroy both of them pretty much instantly with each other, and that is also an ideal situation. But that's kind of it for the pit space. I guess now we can move on to Rush and Go mini game space. This one's actually got nothing to really describe. I actually am just going to I only have one thing I have to highlight, and we'll go through it freeze frame, but again, for the most part, this is just going through a pretty much linear stage here. You see, I'm kind of just screwing around here, and then I go through the corner there. So let's watch that again. Let's watch that again. Oops. Come on. Alright, I think this is the jump here. I get it. But I get to a certain point here. So I guess this being the visual cue right here is where you got to jump. And it allows you to get right through that corner wall there. That's a bit of a glitch. I guess... But it's an interesting little thing. It doesn't really save much time, and in fact, you only stand to lose time by missing it. But I only give it maybe like one go before I decide, nah, it's not worth it at that point, and just continue to move along and get to this. It's like a very mild time save at best. Probably a bigger time save on expert mode, but not really a big enough time save to justify going for it multiple times like I did there. So, in other words, don't do what I tried to do there by constantly doing it over and over again. I only did that to show, that you can clip through that corner. And that's Rush and Go Mini Space 2. Nothing really much to that. Now we come to the second happy item room. And I'm just going to... Whoops. Nope. I forgot exactly what I was supposed to do. There we go. So here are the contents of happy item space. Not a good situation for Flame Chaser. If your primary weapon combo is Flame Chaser, usually you're banking on getting the first happy item because you're not going to get a Chaser in the second happy item. You have an additional Flame, you got the Force, and you have the Lightning and some extra health, but no Chaser this time. So unfortunately, you're kind of shit out of luck. But if you didn't get Lightning until this point, this is your chance to get it if you are a lightsaber runner. But again, like I said, with all happy item spaces, you do want them, and we'll go more into why when we cover what kind of rolls we need for an optimal Dice Palace. Now, moving on to this, I guess the 11th space? Yeah, the 11th space, the Phantom space. So this fight is kind of pretty basic. But you're gonna see this Phantom drop down, and like I said, Phantoms are kind of that fight where physical attacks are not very worthwhile to use because you do want to optimize your conventional weapons to damage a Phantom while he's jumping in midair. And if you're far enough away from him like I was there, you do force the Phantom to jump. So let's watch that again. So like, first and foremost, you might notice as he was dropping down there, let me just, oops, no. There we go. There's the frame I wanted to stop on. So you can see he's dropping down there, and I'm immediately getting that Flame Chaser to start registering damages. I'm not triggering his iframes at all while he's in midair, but I am doing damage to him. Now I'm actually able... You see, him flinching like that is exactly what's going to trigger his iframes. Now, he's in iframes now, and what he's going to do is he's going to jump up. Like so. And his iframes do not last very long. So he's going to get hit, and then he's going to get knocked around. And while he's being flinched back and landing on the ground, I'm able to continue damaging him. So he's going to have his iframes activated again. And then he's going to try to jump at me again. And then there you go. There's the death blow right there. That's how you know the Phantom's dead, when he's doing that pose there. that's when you know he's dead. But that space is very not ideal for lightsaber. Flame Chaser it's fine. Like, you can kill him in a 2-cycle. I didn't there, but you can kill him in a 2-cycle. But that's kind of how that fight goes. You want to damage him. You do want to damage him while he's in midair, because he does not have his iframe. He doesn't have the timer start until he lands on the ground to trigger his iframes. That's basically all that you have to account for when fighting him. Which is significantly harder with lightsaber, and that's why I don't like that space with lightsaber. Which is fine, because you don't want that space anyway in an arm that does powers. Now, the Vortex base fight is another fight I don't like with lightsaber, because the weak spot for Vortex base is all the way down here. And one of the big problems with free run is you can't actually aim your weapon directly down like you can with fixed shot. Or sorry, not free run, free shot. What free shot would have to do is drop down and hang on this platform here, and then trying to aim the lightsaber to hit this weak spot. Whereas with Flame Chaser, I just have to shoot the Flame Chaser onto it here, hope I get good luck with this pattern here, which I did in this case, and then I just defeat him like that. It's a very simple fight with Flame Chaser. I get out of the fight. It's still a long section there because of the long death animation, but that's really all there is to the Vortex fight. Now, moving on to the curry and rice fight. This is the fight. This is the fight right here that a lot of people dread. A lot of people consider this the worst fight. I think Minion Soldier is worse myself, but that's because I have a strategy for him. So if you're struggling with this, you best pay attention, because you might just get your mind blown by how much easier of a fight this is. I know this is the longest fight, but it still is faster to get the space in an optimal ice roll. That was not a very good option. But what I want to do here with this fight. Okay, so kind of the gist of curry and rice. This is a fight you do not have your gun for. You have to basically brawl it out with your fists and kicks and throws and whatnot. And this guy has lightning fast reflexes and will react based on where you are. And he does over prioritize a lot of your attacks. So what this means is it's hard to really land hits. And for a while this fight used to be awful for me too. But it turns out it's actually not as bad as once perceived, once you kind of know how to manipulate the pattern that you want from him. And that's what you're kind of seeing right here, right now. You see I'm kind of jumping up there and baiting his little arm flailing attack. So let's kind of just go over that fight again, because I'm sure a lot of people probably want to know what to do. That situation there is not what you want to have happen. I wanted to jump up and bait him to do the arm attack, but he did the little sweeping low kick attack. And then he actually followed it up with a different attack, which is this spinning attack right here. You see he's doing this little flip kicking move. This move here is the ultimate dick move this guy can do, because he is completely invincible during this attack. Like, you cannot do damage to him. He's completely invincible. Nothing you will do will out-prioritize that attack, and he can do that a number of different times. So he can do it twice in a row. He can even do it 3 times in a row. And it will follow pretty much any attack that he does. He can also react from hit stun with it. It's basically the luck of the draw if you get that attack to show up at all or not. So pretty awful attack that he can do there. But instead, what you want to do with this fight, and why this fight's not as brutal. Okay, in this particular case, I just have iframes, and I tried to go for a throw there, but I punched him instead. That's not what you want to do. Instead, what you do want to do... Whoops. my goodness. Thanks a lot. What you want to do instead... Oh, Jesus. Okay. Hang on. Let me just pause. There we go. All right, so what you want to do is you want to stand on this tile here. You want to be just... You can even have the toe, like, touching this tile here, for instance. The one where my mouse cursor is right now, this tile here. You can have your toe facing there. Or maybe even just a slight tidge to the left of it. And that's good enough distance from him. Where I'm at right now is fine enough. But what you want to do is you want to stand on this particular spot here. And then you want to jump up like I'm doing here. And what this is going to do is it baits out that arm attack. And the thing with Curry and Rice is, as soon as he's a certain distance, when he's close enough to you, he will actually do an attack of some sort. And if he registers that you're in the air, he's going to do the arm attack. Almost guaranteed. If it's not the arm attack, it's the flip kick. There's that arm attack there. You want to bait out this attack because he's pretty much unattackable from the top, but he's completely open at the bottom. If anyone's done like any history on the Black Plague, for instance, and the whole the plague doctors and how their feet were very much left open, for instance, from the disease-ridden fleas that came off of rats and mice, they could actually be attacked because they didn't have any protection down at their feet. But in this particular case, you have Curry and Rice doing that arm attack, and obviously you can't attack him at the top, but he's completely free for the pickings to just run below there. I did a mistake there by punching him. I wanted the grab, actually, which means I wasn't close enough. So again, what I'm going to do is once I punch him once... Actually, no, the punch was not a mistake. It was actually to help get his damage values back down to the proper amount. But again, I get back, I establish that space again. You can see my toe is touching that line there. That's pretty much as close as you want to get to him. And then I'm going to try to bait him again when he's recovering. And yeah, you can see his arms are just not far enough to reach me. And I'm going to just walk right in and then go for the grab. Like so. Just like that. And I make the grab. And that's literally all you have to do in that fight. That's literally all you have to do. You just do that again. And I do that one more time. And that's how you do the fight. So baiting that arm attack is the key. Now before I know I talked endlessly already about this fight, but the next thing you want to do, the next important thing you want to do is when he dies, his body's going to explode and his head's going to fall right up arc and then fall to the middle and explode. To get out of this screen faster, you actually want to take a hit to this head as soon as the body explodes. That helps you get out of this faster. So I'm actually going to jump up here, and then as the body explodes, the head will launch itself and it will hit me. And there's the hit right there. So I took a hit there. Yeah, I took 20 damage, but that's like whatever. That still gets me out of this space much faster than waiting for the head to explode in the middle. Whew. That was a lot to go through for Curry and Rice. But very important that you do learn about that fight, because it is very crucial if you want an optimal Dice Palace. You have to learn that fight. It's ever so essential to do it. And again, I know I've talked endlessly about what does it mean to have the optimal Dice Palace, and I will get to that. This particular entire thing will take a while just on this level alone. But now we're on to Abrenbo Gel space. This is, on the other hand, a much easier fight. Literally just have to walk just a slight few frames to the left and then just do a couple standard kicks to quickly get, or do one simple little kick forward. And then you're pretty much in the right space there to be in kicking range of this guy, and you're literally just kicking him to death. Like, that's all you have to do. That fight is very simple. Shouldn't take any more real explanation to do that. Let me see if I can better explain how I open things. Alright, so I'm going to pause it right here. The stage is just forming here. So, I quickly jump as soon as I can. I do that launching kick. And then I think I move just a slight bit forward. Yep, just a little bit forward there. And I know I do that because I want to be just close enough so that my kick can reach, but I don't want to be too close because you do risk kicking off of him, and that wastes time. So I got the right position there, and then, yeah, you just kick him to death. That's how easy that fight is. So really nothing much to the Aberenbo gel. Which takes us now to our very last fight. I know this has been a very draggy section for me to explain, but I promise you it's almost over. It's almost over, this long, lengthy explanation. Now we have the Super Gondola space, and this is another space where the significant advantage of Fire Chaser comes into play here. You can see I'm able to reach these top things here. Every single one of these has to be destroyed. And you can pretty much tell right away why Lightsaber is awful for that fight. It's absolutely terrible. Pretty much, if I was a Lightsaber user, I would absolutely reset if I got this space because I am just begging to lose probably 20 seconds on this space alone. It is that bad. But that's... Sadly, there's really not much to say about Super Gondola other than really just try to anticipate how Super Gondola is going to move. Obviously, it always starts by moving its weak points towards the right side of the screen there. And then I kind of try to hope to anticipate that the Super Gondola is going to start moving its way to the left side. So I actually prioritize going towards this thing here. And I make the right call there. I think what determines it is how long you spend the Flame Chaser on one side of the screen. I'm not entirely sure, but very important, if it does start moving its weak points to the left side, you get rid of this space, this weak spot here right away. Sometimes it doesn't do that though, which is why it's kind of hard for me to really gauge exactly what you have to do with this fight in order to actually get an optimal fight out of this. But I mean, if you do manage to kill those two weak points before that one weak spot there I just destroyed heads off screen, the fight becomes very simple from there. Like, honestly, the weak spots will just show. You just need good control to optimize the damage and just finish him off. Nothing really much more to say about that. All that's left now is to highlight one final happy item space, which is pretty much insignificant. All you have is Chaser, Flame, and 2 health drops. So say, for instance, you're low on health, you desperately need that health. These 2 health packs are here for you to grab. Pretty much on easy mode, you shouldn't need them. Probably on harder difficulties you might, but on easier difficulties, you shouldn't need them. Shouldn't really need them. Oh, alright. So now that we've discussed what each and every fight of those spaces is, now we have to talk about what does it mean to have an optimal Dice Palace, and how do we go about getting it. So, the thing with getting the optimal Dice Palace, obviously, when you roll the die, you can get a 1, a 2, and a 3. Obviously, in most cases, everyone might think, well, you want to get 3s every time, right? Wrong. You do not want 3s on every roll. Take, for instance, where we start right now. We can roll into one of 3 spaces here. The Valvallian fight, the Happy Item Room, or the Timeron fight. In the start, we want this space. The Valvalian fight takes a little... Both Timeron and the Valvalian space take a significant portion longer than clearing the happy item room. Even if you have to grab a weapon, that is still 100% true. You want to get the happy item room. So usually to start things off, you always want to get the happy item room. And in fact, when we talk about landing on for ideal rolls, you want 3s in every single scenario other than when you're approaching the happy item space. Now, granted, that's not exactly 100% true. In Flame Chaser route, this is pretty much true. Like, for our weapon combo, we want happy item space to start with, because it's a fast space to clear. Then we want to either roll a 2 or a 3. Both of these spaces here are more or less the same length. Most people probably want to opt for Rush and Go minigame space because it's just faster. It's just faster in general. And far less finicky than the minion soldier fight, which is fine. But in general... For lightsaber users, you want Rush and Go minigame space. Well, actually, no, you'd be fine with either one of these spaces. But this is why I stress why no one wants Melon Bread space for optimal Dice Palace. Because if you roll into Melon Bread, you cannot roll into an optimal space. You don't want Rush and Go minigame space too. It's far too long of a space. You don't want the pit space if you're a lightsaber user, because it's just an unfavorable fight. With Flame Chaser, it's a bit different, but ideally, you want to make the most out of your rolls. So obviously, from a happy item space, you want to roll with a 3 to get to Minion Soldier, then roll another 3 to land onto Pit space, because Pit space with Flame Chaser is faster than Melon Bread and the Destroy the Object space. And then from Pit space, you want to roll a 2 to land on happy item space, because it's significantly faster to get through it than Phantom space or whatnot. And then of course, from happy item space 2, it becomes much simpler, because you're directly 6 spaces away from happy item space 3, which means optimally you want to roll a 3 to land on Korean Rice, and then another 3 to land on happy item space number 3. And then, of course, not a 1 roll into the way back space, basically a 2 or a 3. And that's kind of what you want for an optimal. This is why I say getting used to Korean Rice space is very key and essential if you're grinding for the optimal Dice Palace, because you're forced to learn the fight, because that you can't get an optimal Dice Palace otherwise. It's just not possible. To kind of summarize what I got in easy mode with my setup was this space, then this space, then this space here, roll a 3 into this space, then another 3 here, and then whatever number I needed to land into boss space, which is anything other than a 1. That's pretty much the ideal rolling situation for Flame Chaser. Obviously, you have a little more flexibility in the early part of Dice Palace. Like, you don't need Minion Soldier. You could live with Rush and Go space and maybe just land on Destroy the Item space and just hope for a 3 roll on to take an item. You have a little more flexibility in the early part of it. Like, it's not technically, like, how I got my Dice Palace is not the one and only way to have an ideal Dice Palace, especially from the early side of point of view. Like, some people just do not want to deal with Minion Soldier, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Again, like I said, starting with 2 rolls is perfectly fine, because the Rush and Go minigame 1 space is very, very consistent. Once you get it down, it's easy. It's just outright easy to deal with. And then your 3 roll is going to take you to destroy the object, and that's literally a free space. Like, there's no reason for any real logical mess-ups unless you're facing to the left side and whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of how the optimal dice rolls go. Now, this is probably the most important part now. We haven't even gotten to the important part of Dice Palace. How do we get the optimal rolls? Is it luck-based? I can't confirm for sure if it's luck-based. However, my thoughts on Dice Palace, and I believe there is another runner that probably looks at it the same exact way, but my thought on Dice Palace is the dice will fall the exact same way every single time. And so my theory is, by grabbing the dice at the same point, at the same time, and throwing it the same exact direction every single time, will produce the same exact results. I don't believe there is a manipulation to Dice Palace. I could be wrong. I'm sure eventually somebody will. But I think to get the best possible Dice Palace, you kind of have to let luck... You kind of have to believe in your method of grabbing the dice at the same point and throwing it the same exact direction. Basically, doing the same exact thing ad nauseum. That is the way I feel Dice Palace is done optimally to get the best potential rolls. Which means better find some good sound cues to go off of, and you better believe in those sound cues till the day you die, because that is how the only way I've been able to get ideal rolls. That's really all I've got to say about Dice Palace. So, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to try to go for what I do, but I'll try to best explain what I do for Dice Palace. I got a 3 here. Let's see what happens if I throw there. Okay, well, I get a 1 roll instead. That's pretty bad. All right. So this is the Valvalion fight. We're gonna just eat the lag. Okay, he's grouping up there, so that's pretty good. And we want to make sure we are always facing to the right side of the screen. Now we're back onto the board here. I wait for the bounce off there, and then press the down left and then the fire button shortly after. Obviously I messed it up, so my timing is very bad here. Again though, this happy item space, very, very beneficial if I didn't have my preferred weapon combo. Okay, that was a little late. Yeah, sorry, that was a bit early. So, already off to an astounding start. So here's the timer on fight. I'm gonna apply what I learned. And again, that's how you do that fight. We've already discussed all the strategies, so I'm gonna try and show it how it's done in real time. Alright, so there's a 2 roll. So the mini soldier fight. Let's see if we can do a better performance than what I demonstrated in that pre-recording. Oops. Oh man, this guy is not cooperating. Yeah, that was really, really bad fight. So, that is why most people do not want the mini and soldier fight. It's just the Rush and Go minigame is much more consistent. Oh man, I'm getting many 1 rolls here. At this point, I wouldn't even care if I got the way back space. Alright, so Hellenbrit is a pretty simple fight. You can see how easy that was. But again, for me to get the optimal Dice Palace, that is not the ideal situation. Grabbed that very, very early. So of course I got a 1 roll for it. This is already looking really, really bad. And there, okay, so there you saw I was not facing the correct way, and it caused me to miss him. So make sure you're always facing the right side before you initiate your kick to kick that guy. Just an important thing. So far, we have not gotten a 3 roll. This is going really, really, really nicely. Okay, so this time we only got 1 enemy there. Let's see if we can clip through that thing. Nope, we didn't. So I'm just gonna do it the normal way and just finish it off like that. Again, much better to just If you fail it once, just move on. Not even worth going for second tries. Holy, this is a pretty special dice palace. I may as well have just... all that time I spent discussing maybe probably would have been better to just go through the whole thing. Hey, there's our 3-roll. There's our 3-roll, right into curry and rice space. Alright, so now you're going to probably see a better performance than the one I showed. Alright, so I baited him out, move back onto the tile, wait for it, and then bait by jumping straight up. Oh, I did the flip kick. There's 2. Yep. So you can see that flip kick is pretty much impossible to deal with. And then I jump up to get hit by the head as the body explodes, and that gets me out of that stage faster. Nice, and we got a 1-roll. So at this point, I would say getting hit with the way back space isn't even really a big deal at this point anymore. I see I kind of nudged myself a little bit to the left there, just with just standard moving forward movement. And that's kind of how you have to set yourself up in the right, correct position for Aberno Gel. I cannot even say his name. Wow. Now we have the Super Gondola fight. So let's see if we can do exactly the same thing. Do a little damage there. Okay, this time he moved that way, which is a little bit slower. Kind of unfortunate, but kind of just have to deal with it. Still got time. Not really the worst situation, though. I still made sure to get rid of those weak points more on the left side. Now it's time to find out. We do get the way back space. So this is what happens when you get hit with way back space. You get hit all the way back to the start there. And now I'm actually going to just get consecutive rolls. Literally not land on anything. Ah, thought I would go for the clean sweep. But you could see how hard it is just to get your ideal rolls. Obviously, after a certain amount of 1 rolls, it's just a reset for me. I got a very fortunate pattern there again. So, again, that's kind of how I deal with the Vortex base. And hopefully from here on out, it's just some simple few rolls. Alright, I guess we'll get the happy item space. My health is fine, so I'm just going to pretty much just show you how quickly the happy item room goes. You enter it, and then you exit it within a few seconds. And that's why you want the happy item space when you can afford to get it. But nothing can stand in our way now. We're just going to go straight to the boss room. And now the tutorial can go by at a proper pace now. Dice Palace was really the long part of this tutorial to kind of just detail it, because there's just so many things I was probably not going to be able to show you. I thought, but obviously I was wrong. Okay, so the black fight is actually pretty simple. What's going to happen here is he's going to spawn here. And what's going to happen is once he spawns, I'm going to start kicking him from this side. And that's because he's going to start moving towards this side and then up towards this corner here and then towards this corner here. And he just kind of goes in a clockwise pattern from this point here where he spawns. So let's do a little bit of damage to him. Whoops. Wow. That was actually really bad. Okay, so he rolled a 1 there. And what's going to happen, what this whole dice thing here does determine is how many times he moves. And by what that means, why is it really important how many times he moves? You're probably thinking. Well, why it's important is because Where he stops is what determines, where he stops exactly is what determines which of these colored spaces activates. If he's in the middle here, he's going to activate the yellow space. If he moves, twice, he activates the red space, which is the fire flame attack. If he rolls a 3, he huddles up into this corner here, and what that's going to do is activate the blue spaces. Obviously on easy mode, you don't get much time to actually see any of this, but that's kind of the gist of the fight. Which color panel activates depends on where he stops, and where he stops depends on what exactly his dice roll is. So, like, for a while when I was playing this game, I kind of wondered what exactly was the point of him rolling a dice. But after some time of playing this game and running this game, I've learned that it determines how many times he actually moves. And in this case, he just rolls a 1. So I just basically get into exactly the right spot and kick him. Again, like I said, well, actually, I don't think I said this before, but the kick offers you iframes. Like, you could see the firepower went straight through me. I have iframes with this kick. Like, firepower actually doesn't do that. And the iframes extend for a longer period of time so long as I'm making contact damage with something. So keep that in mind. So he's going to die right here. And that's literally the fight. That's literally all there is to this fight. So now we're just going to wait for him to give us our gem. Of course, we're right up next to him because he's literally going to bait us. This time it's not a bait. So I'm just going to get back at him for being a little jerk like that. And that's the black stage. Sorry to have taken a very long time to explain that. But now we have 3 significantly less descriptive levels to describe. So we're going to start with the pink stage. This is a very short level. It probably will take even maybe a fifth the time for me to explain what to do compared to the black stage. So to start things off, we want to hold up and right, and this allows us to get as much forward momentum and distance as possible. Once the second kick happens, we want to start holding down and right while we're in the midst of continuing our forward momentum. And what that's going to do, or actually no, we want to hold right. We want to hold right, not down. And then we want to jump and then immediately shift our thumb direction to down and right. And that allows us to do the downward kick. I mentioned how kicking with the downward kick allows us to miss this house here. With a free shot, I don't think this is actually possible. I think you actually have to slide underneath, which give or take, that sounds maybe not the best. It may not sound like the best situation, but really for fixed shot anyway, you have the option of kicking downwards and not being slowed down by that house, because you can destroy this house by kicking it. I'm actually serious. You can literally destroy this house by kicking it. But yeah, that's a pretty small thing, little thing that to keep in mind of. But moving on, now we have the advantage of Flame Chaser showing him full potential here. While you're kicking forward, you'll see that I shot a Flame Chaser kind of down to the right and then holding right as soon as it lands on the ground. And that kills pretty much anything that's there. As you get to the saving yellow stage, though, it's a little bit more tricky than that. But for now, you want to utilize this tech to get rid of any potential enemies that could jump into the air and anti-air you with the kick of their own. Which, on top of them being, I think, invincible, their hitbox for the kick is obscenely absurd. It's absurd how dumb the hitbox is to their kick. And maybe you might get a chance to see that, but we'll see. So here's the mechanical bird here. I'm going to see if I can kick it and show just how many weapons drops out of it. Okay, well, I didn't get to show it there, but basically what can happen is you can do a high jump and kick the mechanical bird, and it will immediately drop 3 weapons. At just 3 weapons, sorry, I'll use this hand. 3 weapons will pretty much instantly drop from it, and that's all you're going to get from it. You might get a 4th one, depending on if the mechanical bird drops to the ground like he did there because an enemy attacked it. So keep that in mind. But we already have our weapon. So we don't need to stick around this pit of death zone with all these minions. When we get to this point, you want to be on the top part here, because this helps you avoid pretty much all enemies, because most of them are not going to show up on the top part. They're going to show up at the bottom. So by staying close to the top, we're able to avoid pretty much everything. There's that kick there. This guy here did a kick a little bit earlier. He was not able to be close enough to me, but if he was jumping up and kicking me as he went past me, he would have hit me somehow. But that time he didn't. So pretty much your save zone's going to be past this sandbag here, because right after this is going to be your first phantom fight. So you want to get your conventional weapons ready. Again, conventional weapons is the fastest way to be able to handle phantom fights quickly and effectively, bearing a couple of examples, which I will go into later. So there he is right there. And you can see how quickly I reacted to him showing up. And just by doing that, he instantly dies. And with Flame Chaser, he's pretty much guaranteed to die. It's not very common that the Phantoms survive a single cycle with Flame Chaser. I'm going to pick up that health. And now, excuse me, comes another mini-boss fight. This one, pretty much simple. It doesn't really matter which weapon type you have. They can be handled pretty much the same way. You just get in the middle there. Whoops. Okay, that was kind of bad, but pretty much as soon as you enter, get the text rolling as fast as possible, and then immediately get the damage on the asparagus there. And just get rid of him as soon as possible before anything really has a chance to spawn. And that's kind of how you deal with the asparagus fight. Now, as soon as the screen starts scrolling, you want to do a downward kick because, of course, you got another mechanical bird right there. If you don't have your ideal weapon to start the stage off, this mechanical bird is another one you can do a regular kick on and get get at least 3 weapons out of him, because there's no enemies that are going to show up right now. But yeah, you can see, once again, utilizing standard kicks and then trying to make sure to do a downward kick when I know there's a house coming up like this. And actually, I stay to the bottom during this stretch, as you probably noticed there. It's not 100% necessary. If you feel more safe going the top route during that stretch, you can do that too. I'm fine with the bottom route there because this section here is actually not as chaotic as the first section is. But yeah, like before, once you know a Phantom's going to show up, get that Flame Chaser going as soon as possible and get the damage in and deal the death blow as soon as possible. Advance the screen to the next part of the level. So now comes this part here. I can't advance the screen. Once you're a little bit past the ceiling here, you want to stop because a wall starts forming here and you actually can't advance. You'll actually kick right off of the side of the wall here and land like down here. You do not want that. So once you're past this part, I would suggest stopping and waiting till the screen starts scrolling up. Once these guys lift off and the screen starts scrolling up, that's when you want to start your massive climb. And from there, to have an optimal climb, all you have to do is hold right and double tap like this. It's really that simple. And as long as you keep that rhythm, you are able to just completely climb up the pyramid pretty cleanly. Sometimes these guys will troll you by spawning right in front of you, and you'll hit them, and that will actually stop your forward momentum and make you miss a step. In such a situation like that, no, just simmer down and take it just a little bit safer, a little bit slower, so you don't accidentally kick off one of the steps and go down like 4 of them. Just don't take that risk. Just eye it out. If you know you make contact with the enemy, just kind of play it a little bit slower and a little bit safer, so you don't end up losing time, getting a little too antsy. So there's the screen scroll. Once I know I've landed, I literally just keep that double tap motion. That was a very clean ascent. Very simple part. And as for this guy, he has an ability to actually recharge his vitality, but he's not going to be able to do that because the conventional weapons just completely destroys him like that. And now, the section that follows. This is a section I don't even have to really pause the game for. You can actually stand in this top section right up here and you're completely safe. You can see how everything's kind of just going past me and like literally nothing's touching me. And that's just standing in this corner up here. You don't get squished, nothing happens. It's actually a very, very, very simple part of the level. And just chillax, relax, maybe relax your hands a little bit. And now comes this next stretch here. This is one section where using your physical attack for jumping forward momentum, getting your momentum to jump forward really quickly is not always the most beneficial. You actually want to slide when you know there's going to be beehive coming up. So here's 2 kicks, and then I'm going to slide when I know there's a beehive. These beehives here. I'm going to move here and then slide here because I know an arm's going to spawn there. And then I can begin jump kicking again. Really only jump kick when you know you're safe to do this. Because if you jump kick and you know a beehive's going to be there, you're just going to get anti-aired and you're going to lose time for that. So really only do it when you feel you have to do it. Only jump kick for forward momentum if you know it's going to save you time. Don't do it if you know you're going to get anti-air because it's not faster. It is slower. Once you know you're in the safe zone, that's when you can do it. Now, as for this part here, there's going to be an enemy that drops down here, an enemy that drops down here, and an enemy that drops down here. So we want to start by killing this guy, move the flame chaser over here, kill the guy here, then drop down, kill the guy here. Let's see if we can demonstrate that. Nope. Okay, we did not demonstrate that properly, but that's kind of the idea of what you have to do. You want to have the flame chaser right here, ready to go, as the guy drops down here. And then as soon as you kill him, you kill the second guy here. And then you trace the flame chaser down to the guy who drops down here. Generally, right here is probably the safe spot to stand. Obviously, I messed it up because I didn't realize I lost control of the flame chaser and I slid to the wrong side. That was actually a very bad mistake, so don't try to replicate what I did there. But that's kind of, if you want to do this with flame chaser, that's kind of the way you got to handle that section. Now, pink stage, or the pink fight itself, is actually a very simple fight. This is actually probably the easiest fight of this level. All you have to do is get up to here and anticipate when the boss's vitality message shows up, and that's when you can start registering damage on this fight. And like with all bosses that you can get up close on, physical attacks are the primary damage dealer. So what I do is, I do a single jump kick for some strong additional damage, and then as I'm about to land, I'm holding down, and then I just start spamming C, so I just keep doing this slide attack. Sometimes you might get an unfortunate pattern where this guy will move in such a way that will line himself up perfectly to throw lasers at you, or to shoot lasers at you. This pattern here he's giving me is actually the ideal pattern. He's low enough to the point where his AI makes it so that he's shooting his gun directly straight, and he's just, it looks like he's blind. It actually looks like he's completely blind with these shots, but that's how his AI is programmed on easy mode. Sometimes the arm will extend out to here, and instead of shooting straight like that, like he's doing right now, he'll shoot directly down at you. So sometimes it's actually a form of luck. This is what real luck is all about. This pattern that he can give me here can completely be luck based. And you can see, because he gave me a favorable pattern, I was able to keep sliding into the machine and then just kill him pretty much instantly. And that's why it's pretty much the easiest fight of Pink Stage. And that's just the stage right there. I didn't even have to spend really a whole lot of time explaining that level. And funny enough, it's going to be the same way for Green Stage, because that's where we're going next. So we're going to try and get Green back, which we're going to fail to do. Sorry for the spoilers, but yeah, Green Stage is basically an auto-scroller. And one important thing you want to know with this, ducking will make you dodge everything. Like, look at this. There's a guy shooting a gun at me. He's missing me. There's a guy kicking me. He's missing me. And this is literally how this stage goes. This works on expert mode. It works on hard, normal, easy. Doesn't matter what difficulty. Nothing is going to touch you. The only thing that will touch you is if this guy brings out a gun and is in the right position to shoot you, then he can hit you. Another thing that can hit you is this mine right here. That's another thing that can hit you. So you know, in situations like that, then you want to shoot something. Otherwise, you can actually just chill out and duck the entire length of this level for the most part. We'll get to the parts where you actually need to kill stuff. But let's kill that mine because we want to not be dealing with the grenades it shoots out. That's what the mine actually does. It just shoots out grenades. Also, another important thing, you can't do any physical attacks in Green Stage. So you're basically reliant on your conventional weapons. Alright, so this sound you're hearing now is our first train. This train is very, very important. And it's very important because getting rid of the enemies on this train gets it to despawn faster, and it helps progress the auto-scroller faster. This is the form of speed tech involved in this level. There isn't much, but that's pretty much the main thing. Get rid of all the enemies on the train to advance the auto-scroller faster. So this is what I'm going to do. So here's our first trio of enemies. These two here are going to be the first guys that become vulnerable. Once you kill them, this guy will become vulnerable. But this guy can't be killed until he's off to the right side of the screen here. Which means, for Flame Chaser, you gotta actually pretty much do it blind, killing this guy. But it's doable. With Lightsaber, it's actually not doable unless you actually switch out of your lightning and just stick with flame, because flame gives you further distance of your attack. It gives you greater range for your attack. In that situation, that's the only time you're gonna not be. Well, okay, sorry. If you're using Flame Chaser, that's one of the few times where you have to select out of Lightsaber. Wow, I butchered that sentence. If you have Lightsaber, that's one of the few times you'll want to select out of your weapon so you can use something with longer range to confirm kill this third guy here. But since we have Flame Chaser, here's how we're gonna kill him. And then you can hear that I killed that third guy there off screen. Now the train is going to leave. And as soon as the train leaves, we have this one last mine here. Some people have theorized killing this mine as soon as possible does advance the auto-scroller faster. My personal belief is that it does not. And doing any sort of, position precise movement in order to spawn it in the correct spot to kill it faster is, in my opinion, not faster. Because I'm actually going to leave it alone. And you can see that I left it alone. And this is generally, if you kill the train the same exact way, you'll get to this part the same amount of time whether you kill that mine or not. And that's why I say I don't think killing that mine actually means anything in the grand scheme of things for speed. But now we're on the vertical part of the mine shaft. These enemies here will pretty much shoot their guns as soon as they come on screen, or they'll bring out the gun as soon as they come out on screen. So you do have to kill them as soon as possible. Then you have these things here. These things here, which kind of create this little impassable barrier. They do turn off, though, so they aren't impassable. It looks like it's impassable, but they do disappear, and it allows you to get past the barrier. But we don't have to actually worry about that. We have more than enough damage output to kill it without it being a real threat, like so. And yeah, basically, this is how this section goes. Once you stop seeing these barrier things here, you already know the second train is going to be coming pretty soon. It always shows up here, so always be prepared with your conventional weapon here to kill the 3 guys that are basically just sleeping on this train. Why they're sleeping, I don't know. Just part of the charm of the game, I guess. So now we're back to the regular part of the mine shaft. Again, like I said, you can literally just duck and hold B, and everything will just basically die. You don't even have to try. You can even grab that if you want to. Okay, so there you actually saw a minion actually kick that mechanical bird and knocked it down. That's another way of gaining something extra out of these mechanical birds that you see in this level. So just something to keep in mind to it when you do run this game. And we got fortunate luck. The mine actually spawned at the top there. He's completely harmless if he's on the opposite side. Alright, so now we see the next part of the train. This is the big one right here. This one's got multiple parts of it. What starts off this part what starts off this part here is the... Okay. I had a bit of a brain fart here. What the first minions here that become vulnerable are these 2 off to the side here. The middle one becomes vulnerable after them. So begin by trying to kill off these 2 to the side here. And then once you kill them, you start focusing on the middle one there. Now, phase 2 of this train, all 3 of these guys are going to spawn simultaneously. So being able to optimally kill all 3 of them really, really quickly is very, very critical. So I just kind of snake around and kind of do a pattern like that, although that was definitely mistimed. I wanted to actually kill the guy here first, then the guy in the middle, then the guy to the far right. In that particular order, because I believe it is slightly faster. It actually puts the train on a more effective cycle. As for this last one here, the one that becomes vulnerable is the one in the middle first. So keep your conventional weapon on him, and he will die first. Then as soon as he's dead, these 2 guys will become vulnerable. Like so. And after you do that, you're done with the train. These guys don't need to be fired at. They're gonna advance past, and there's Smash Daisuke. So here's our M Bison knockoff Smash Daisuke. You'll see him a couple of times. In fact, you'll see him primarily in the intro. I'm not exactly sure what his role is in all of this, but I guess he is an enemy. So do keep that in mind. He is an enemy. He's our comic relief enemy, I guess. But what's going to happen here is the train's going to disappear, and what's going to happen is the screen's going to flash white. When this happens, in fact, from this point here that I've paused till the white explosion is gone, don't fire anything. You're going to lag the game. Save the frames, people, please. So now that the explosion has happened, we don't have to worry about the lag anymore. But that doesn't mean we want to fire our weapon right away. What we want to do... So what's going to happen here? He's going to move forward. And from this point onward, Smash Daisuke becomes vulnerable. I think from this point onward. But we don't want to fire right away. We want the train to somewhat retract all the way to the left, and then move a little bit to the right before we start actually attacking Smash Daisuke here. And we want to do that because if we hit him too early, the train will actually push itself far right and then leave the screen to the left. And this is actually a bit of lost time. You actually want the train to hit its leftmost point before Smash Daisuke actually jumps to the top of the train and the train starts exploding. Let's see if I actually properly display that. So you can see how the train stopped moving right before I killed him, and now there's Smash Daisuke on the exploding train, and the train is actually leaving much sooner. If you had started damaging him earlier, you'll actually kill the train before the train, the frontmost part of the train stops moving to the right. And that'll actually cause the train to start moving far, far, far further to the right. And then take its sweet-ass time to start moving to the left. Because you actually can't advance the auto-scroller until he leaves to the left side of the screen like he's doing right there. And yeah, that's basically it for the stage. Now, we're on to the boss fight. We're actually on to the boss fight itself. And I know I said I'd be done with the pre-recording stuff, but unfortunately, we have to detail... Actually, you know what? We don't have to detail that. Let's actually see how the fight plays out. And then we'll detail the forms that he doesn't take. So here's the thing about the green fight. He has 7 forms. There's 7 forests that he can turn to. On easy mode, he only has 3 forms that he does. One is the standard form he always starts with, and then he decides between 2 of the other 6. And, he starts by choosing 1 out of 3 forms he could do for the second phase, and then 1 out of 3 other forms he can do on the third phase. That's kind of what the 7 forces fight is in a nutshell for easy mode. In normal mode, he has 5 forms that you got to do, and on the harder difficulties after that, it's all 7 forms. So expert mode doesn't really matter to really explain. Like you could pretty much explain. You pretty much could do a tutorial on expert mode and not have to do like any pre-recorded stuff in order to actually show all the forms and where you have to position yourself, what the forms each all do, and where the safe spots are to stand. We're gonna actually play out the fight itself and see what we get, and then I'll cover pre-recordings of what we actually don't get. So here's green right here. He's going to start with Soldier Force. As soon as he activates there, I'm going to be in the bottom right. And why I want to be on the bottom right is because I want to bait out this ball attack he does. If I'm on the top part, he does a boomerang attack. And the boomerang attack lags the game more with Flame Chaser on the screen. So obviously you want the ball attack there. Okay, so the other major fault that I've committed now is that instead of jumping towards Soldier Force, I'm actually on the rightmost part of the screen. This isn't the worst situation, but by being closer to him at this point in the fight, you actually bait out his arm extension attack. And that actually causes him to be vulnerable for a much longer period of time, especially on easy mode. So by actually keeping, by being furthermore to the right side of the screen, though, it means he's going to shoot out another ball attack, which is fine. That's totally fine. It's just that it means I have to dodge one more attack instead of no more attacks beyond this point. But the hardest part of Soldier Force is being able to control Flame Chaser while still being able to dodge his attacks by switching the gravity, by pretty much just gravity flipping to the ceiling and the ground. That's mainly the hard part of Soldier Force. Yeah, you can see how hard it actually is to control. And there is the and that's the Soldier Force. So now there's the explosion. Green is jumping out of Soldier Force. He's now, what's going to happen now is he's entered phase 2. And what form he takes for phase 2 does depend on where he teleports to. And I think I know with that health value, I know what he's probably going to do. Yep. Okay, so in phase 2, he can teleport to 3 different locations. He can teleport up here, right in the direct middle space here. He can teleport slightly further below, like he is there, like he did here. Or he can teleport directly at the very bottom middle here. So basically, this arc right down here in the bottom. And where he teleports is what determines what force he's going to change into next. If he's up here, he will do Urchin Force. If he's way down here, he's going to switch to Tail Force. And if he's where he is now, he's going to do Eagle Force. And Eagle Force is actually the best possible luck because all I have to do is get to this top right corner where I'm at right now and then just Flame Chaser him to death. Like I'm about to show. And you can see he's got a pretty elaborate sort of pattern. He will kind of swap his arms for... Okay, so he'll kind of like somewhat... It's kind of hard for me to explain it when I'm this close to the webcam, but his arms are basically going to be like sometimes straight out, then he's going to do... Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to show it, but the arm positions will have his arms straight out like this, and then he'll move his arms like that, and then back forward, then down like this. That's kind of his arm formations. He'll also swing his feather tail side to side, and you know this is somewhat of a problem for Light Chaser to deal with. But I think there is a spot. You have to do a little bit of position changing with Light Chaser or Lightsaber, but with Fire Chaser, you literally just have to camp yourself up at the top corner here and just damage him constantly, like I'm doing right now. And he is going to die before he even makes it to me. And there you go. That's it for the Flame Chaser. Now, looking at that health value, I already know what form he's going to go for next. Now we've entered phase 3. Yep, and as I expected, he's going for the Crab Force. So that's unfortunate, kind of bad luck. But to kind of describe the third phase, he has 3 forces he can take. He can choose the Blaster Force, which is a gun, and that's signified if he teleports here. And he can also teleport down lower to the ground and far to the left. That is what will signify him changing to Tiger Force. Where he's teleporting here is the other place he can go to, and that is the Crab Force. And Crab Force is bad luck, but I'll kind of try to explain why it's bad luck here. Actually, I can actually do that right now. For starters, he has the highest held value with Crab Force. That's bad luck part number 1 with Crab Force. The other reason it's bad luck is because he takes a while to become vulnerable with Crab Force. Like, I can't actually damage this little thing here. I have to wait till the rest of the body forms before I can start damaging him. That's bad luck part number 2. Now, it's arguable if it's actually faster or not with Tiger compared to Tiger Force, but obviously in Phase 3, you want Blaster Force. Blaster Force is the best possible luck with Phase 3. Crab Force is pretty bad luck, but it can potentially be still faster than Tiger Force, especially if Tiger Force is being extremely mean to you with his patterns. We'll go more into that right after this fight, though. For now, I'm going to finish off what we have to do for Crab Force here. So we want to get right about here. Okay, that might be actually too far away, but we kind of want to keep damaging him and destroy everything that comes out. And that was actually the best place to actually stand, because I don't think anything could have hit me there. But you want to be able to damage the full body, as well as kill any sort of projectiles he throws out on the bottom side, whatever side you're on. And as you can imagine, that can be pretty straining on your physical capabilities, because you have to still be able to damage the boss and get out of it as soon as possible. But that is how Crab Force is dealt with. And like I said, easy mode, you only face 3 forces. So the fight is over in easy mode now. But that is basically all there is to that's basically all there is to the fight. Or to the stage itself. Now, I should probably now go over the forms that he did not do. And I guess I'll start with the ones that he could have chosen in Phase 3. In Phase 2, I mean. So, let's start with the Tail Force. So let's just rewind a little bit. Yeah, so there's the teleport. You can see he now teleports to the very bottom there. And this is, like I said, this is the Tail Force. This is Tail Force here. I'm actually not sure why I moved up there. That actually is kind of bad, because where you want to actually be, you want to be down here. You want to actually be right down on the lower part here, because that allows you to damage him. And you don't have to worry about this tail here hitting you. This phase is actually, I'm not sure if it's actually less laggy than the Eagle Force. It might be by just a few frames, but there is a moment where we actually have to stop damaging him and to safely be able to maneuver over to the left side of the wall here, because what Tail Force does is he moves up and then left, then down, then to the right, and basically pretty much just does a counterclockwise pattern here. But you kind of just, and on easy mode he doesn't actually shoot out any bullets, thankfully, because that's a very laggy attack he does. He basically just does this. And once he's about to hit the right wall, that's when you gotta switch to the left wall, because he's going to move up and pretty much cover all your safe places to stand on the right side. And then you want to finish him as he's kind of laying dormant there in the middle. And that's kind of how the Tail Force fight goes. So again, pretty quick phase to get out of, all things considered. But that is the Tail Force fight. It's actually probably a fine enough pattern to get. Like Eagle Force, Tail and Eagle Force are more or less the same. If you could optimize damage, Tail Force is arguably faster, but it's also much more tricky because there is movement involved. Now, Urchin Fight, unfortunately, is much slower. Not much slower, but it's a little bit slower compared to the Tail and the Eagle Force. And why that is can be demonstrated in this video here. This is where he switches to Urchin Force, which is the other third phase that he can do. So here he's actually teleporting directly to the middle of the screen. Reason number one why the Urchin Force is a bad form to get. See how long it took to actually become vulnerable? That's reason number one. The other reason why he is also a bad form to get is that he has more than one phase to the fight. So you have to wait for that, and then he can also troll you with that. That's another reason why he's also an awful fight to get. So I actually lost, I think, potentially like 3-4 seconds compared to the other phases getting this particular pattern. Obviously, it's not... obviously, I stand to lose a little less time if he doesn't do that extra teleporting move when in that second phase. But more or less kind of how the fight goes. He just bounces back and forth and back and forth. And he's supposed to eventually decide when to move down to the other side and then bounce back and forth. But he actually did not show that, and generally he won't get the chance to show that on easy mode. So you shouldn't have to worry about that particular movement, but if he does do it, maybe hang closer towards the bottom if you are more worried about that happening. But it shouldn't be something that can happen. It's not something that is likely to happen on an easy mode run. But that's kind of how the Urchin Force fight works. So now we got only 2 more forces to cover, and that is the 2 that did not get chosen on the third phase. So I'll start with the easier and quicker one of the 2, which is the Blaster Force. This is the gun phase. So not only, for one thing, you can already tell 500 less health. That already makes him a much faster fight. But what also makes him a faster fight is that there is a safe spot to stand in this fight. So here you can see, I mean, obviously it looks like this is also taking about as long as the Crab Force, but this takes no time at all. Actually, let me just show you in real time what it looks like. That's how quickly he forms Blaster Force. So on top of having less health, he takes far less time to load. And to make things even better, there is a safe spot to stand, and that is pretty much... Actually, hold on. Let me... yeah, pretty much directly below the first thing that spawns when he initiates Blaster Force form. That's where you have to stand, is directly below it. And by standing directly below it, you actually are in a safe spot. So now the gun's gonna just... Oops. The gun's just gonna twirl around a little bit and then aim itself at you, and it's just gonna keep missing you. And that's literally all there is to Blaster Force. It's a very easy fight, and now you know exactly where you have to stand. Again, like I said, it's directly below the very first part. Oops. It's directly below the very first part of the form that spawns, which is this little thing right here. So now let's show it in frame by frame, the motion. There's the gun, the rest of the gun forming, and there you could still see the first thing right there. I'm directly below that first point that spawns, and that's what creates the safe spot to stand. So that's the easy part of the forms that he could choose for Phase 3. Now, the actual hardest form is this one. This is the Tiger Force. The safe spot to stand in this particular form is very tricky and also very luck dependent. For Flame Chaser, this is actually a very, very very, very dumb form to deal with, because sometimes what this guy has a tendency to do is he likes to just bull charge and stay as far to the right side as possible, and then literally just hang out on the right side, and just it creates no safe spot to really stand. This spot here is probably the best place you can be with Flame Chaser. I know that sounds crazy, and I know in many cases it's not going to pay off, but I have seen plenty of runners do this fight on Expert, and it does pay off for them to be in that spot. And that's kind of what this fight is all about. You can see I kind of hang there and I don't get hit at all. And sometimes you just have to hope that this pattern is going to give you... Okay, so right at the end of that fight, he was actually going to hang out on the right side there and actually hit me, but he just died in time. And you can see even with a favorable pattern, it's still a slower fight compared to Blaster Force, because you don't have to worry. The fortunate thing is Tiger Force does spawn a lot earlier compared to the other two forms. Well, not a lot earlier, but it does spawn a lot faster, but you also have a lot less time to react to it because he's all the way on the left side of the screen. But yeah, it's very, very tough dealing with the fight. What his fights actually, if you weren't paying attention to his attacks, so you see this little cursor here. This is why the top ceiling there is not a safe spot to be at. His tail will attack periodically, and it will home in on where your current spot is. So even though I do risk being treaded on by his feet, it may or may not happen. Whereas the tail attack is always going to home in exactly where you're at, and it's always going to hit you and interrupt what you're doing. That's why it's better to stay at the very bottom, on the bottom side compared to the top side here. And that's why this fight is very annoying for Flame Chaser. But that's pretty much it. That pretty much covers the 7 Forces fight. Thankfully, we actually got less annoying forms. I know we got the crab form, but that is significantly better than what we could have had with Tiger Force. Because I probably would have had a much worse performance with the with Tiger Force. So now we're done with Green Stage. Now we can talk about probably the one that doesn't really need much explanation. And this is the orange stage, and most of this is an auto-scroller. This is yet another stage where there's really not much to it. It's mostly an auto-scroller. There is a bit of tech involved, but it's still pretty simple. Just know that when I use my conventional weapons to damage, it's the only time it makes sense to do it. And if I use my physical damage, it's the fastest way to deal with a different fight. So you'll see some fights that I use physical, other fights that I just use the conventional weapons. But for right now, we're kind of just chilling out with this auto-scroller, and this will not be the last time we see an auto-scroller. So this is why I say, now that we're past Dice Palace, the lengthy discussion of the tutorial is going to be significantly less. So yeah, pretty much, actually here you want to try to avoid shooting. It does lag the game a little bit. So instead what I do is I like to throw stuff. I might lose a frame or two for that, but it's still far better than shooting a weapon. You can also choose to just throw them outright, like that. That's pretty funny when that happens. Pretty much I just like to screw around in this particular section. It's not really... You don't really lose any time. You don't gain anything for it. Now, here comes the important part of the fight. You want to be positioned right here as soon as this spot right here where I'm standing now, this is where you want to stand. Because what's going to happen is, Yellow Phantom's going to show up, he's going to swoop in and pretty much hang out right here. Then he's going to kind of stand there for a little bit, then kind of fly up and then do a little swooping kick attack as he's flying up in the air. Sometimes he might choose to go off screen and then come back on screen, but hopefully if you do this fight right, he won't get to really show anything that he does. What we want to do is, as soon as we know he's about to as soon as he shows up, we want to jump up in the air and do a downward kick and kill him. That's basically what you want to do. You want to jump in the air and just hold down and then hit the jump button for a downward kick and do a bit of optimal physical damage and quickly kill the Yellow Phantom. Like that. So he's dead now. That's how quickly he dies. See, unlike other Phantom fights, you actually want to do the physical attack because he's airborne. So iframes can't trigger. Well, like I've said before with other Phantom fights, when a Phantom is airborne, iframes can't be triggered. So by aerial kicking him, he's always going to be vulnerable. All that damage is going to be registered and he's going to die instantly. And then when he dies, you get right down into this bottom corner here and start holding right. Actually holding up and right. And as soon as the screen starts scrolling, I want to kick forward, get a high kick, and then I also want to shoot a flame chaser forward. You'll see why in a moment. So now you got these turrets here. And these turrets are a real big pain with in higher difficulties. But in easy mode, you have some time to react. But they fire out bullets, so you want to get through this section as fast as possible. This is also why why this particular level may not be a bad choice for a first level to start with, too. Because you do have many options of getting weapons to drop. But now that I've killed the first thing here, I want to jump up here and try to get through this section as fast as possible. I also want this to happen because I have a certain theory about the orange softlock, which I'm probably going to do in a different video, but yeah, I'll try to explain that in a different video because that bears needing a separate video, and I'll probably end up talking way too long about it. And it may not even make any sense. So, really basically, get on this platform here, do a high jump, kick forward, so you can try to get through this section as optimally and quickly as possible. And see, just that easy. Just that easy. So now we are at the next wall. This is our next mini-boss fight, and unlike the Phantom before, we actually want to damage this thing with our conventional weapons. And the reason for that is because this boss here, he's going to jump up and jump down, and it makes getting physical attacks on him very hard. It's very hard to get proper physical attacks on him because of his movement. And just in general, you're not going to be able to optimize physical attacks on this guy because he comes from off the screen. You can't get much on him, and his movement makes it hard to get physical attacks on him. So we opt for conventional weapons. So from this point, it should be easy enough knowing how I primarily get damage on him. That was all very bad fight. And now that we are past that fight, you probably saw those two guys shortly after. Killing them gives you health, so if you do need it, killing them will give you that. But now comes another fight with a familiar face, and then a Smash Dice game. This fight is actually pretty simple with Flame Chaser. Just keep it on him. And he literally dies before you even get the chance to really see what he gets to do at all. Killing him even just a slight bit slower does not lose any time because you have to wait for this entire scene, for this chopper here to stop here. Because waiting for him, or doing that means... Okay, so how do I even explain this without sounding confusing? Killing Smash Daisuke, even a slight bit slower, doesn't lose you time because you have to wait for this entire cutscene where the chopper swoops down low and kind of lays dormant, waiting for this guy, Orange, to show up from down here and jump onto the chopper. That's basically what I meant to say. And now we're at the end of the level. Literally at the end of the level. We're at the final fight of this stage. And how we want to do this fight. There's a lot of things Orange can do in this fight, and they all sound very scary. He can grab you, he can throw you off the edge. He can go and grab this spinning chopper thing. He can leap and jump off the ground, and that wastes a ton of time. He has a lot of things that can just waste all of your time. But what he does, what we can do, though, to prevent all of these bad things from happening is we can force his AI instead to try and do some sort of explosive attack that attacks below the chopper here in response to me kind of hanging and chilling out down here. And what that'll end up doing is it will actually force him into a state that makes him very vulnerable to being thrown. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up triggering his iframes if we can. If we don't, we're going to wait for him to do his attack and then try to kick up while he's doing it. And then we're going to try to land a grab and throw him straight down. So hopefully I'll show this off. Let's see if we get it. Okay. All right, so sometimes he might actually get flinched like that. In that case, just keep dropping down and coming back up and just kicking him until eventually you can actually get grabs on him. All right, so that was actually bad. But now that I got the throw on him, now that I've confirmed got the throw on him down, while he's in hit stun, drop down in that situation, wait for him to flex the muscles, and then as soon as he flexes the muscles like that, you kick up, you grab him while he's vulnerable, and you repeat this step ad nauseum. Wow, he still got the throw on me. Okay, so that was an embarrassing show right there, but that's kind of the idea of what you're supposed to do. It was kind of hard for me to show that off without pretty much breaking my my sequence of actions there, but that's kind of the idea of how to do that fight the proper way. So that's it for all the 4 selectable stages that you can do in any order. Now we actually are on to a rather standard sort of level where we have to try to kick jump as much to get as much forward momentum as we can to get through the level as fast as we can. There's only one little bit of advice really I have to explain for much of this level, and that is the phantom quick kills. And hopefully I'll get the chance to show them off. But yeah, pretty much for the most part, this is a pretty standard level, but it's also one of the more frustrating levels. Thankfully, though, most time losses are not too severe in the worst case scenario. So here are these platforms here. These platforms here are what somewhat allows for you to get phantom quick kills on. In lower difficulties especially, since the phantoms are very passive on easy mode. So here's our first phantom. This guy will likely not be quick killed. Yep, because he opened up with a grenade instead. Not really much you can do about that. That's actually a bad pattern. Ideally, you would rather want him to jump forward, and then you would actually explode the canister that was down here. And sometimes that canister explosion will cause a phantom quick kill, believe it or not. but he needs to be close enough to it in order for it to work. That's something that generally you're not going to see in any difficulty other than the higher difficulties. So it is better to just use your conventional weapon to kill the Pink Phantom. It's more than likely the faster way to do it. So that's that. And don't do what I just did there. That's actually really bad. And you see, this section here is kind of hard to navigate. Again, you don't want to land directly onto a minion because he'll instantly probably grab you. Just a bad situation. Also, do try to react to lasers that might shoot out like that, and just like, even if you have to stop damaging the Phantom, you may trigger him to jump like I did there. And it actually allowed you to cycle him instead of waiting on iframes to expire. Don't go for the Phantom quick kill on the Black Phantom. It's not worth it. You're very unlikely to get it. And it's very hard to actually have that platform swoop down low enough for you to grab it. But he's already dead, so probably not worth even mentioning at that point. But now we're on to the third section here. This stack of boxes... The fastest way to get through this is by sliding into this bottom box here and killing these two boxes here. Because what ends up happening when you do that, you end up killing both of them, and then you end up clipping to the other side there. And that, I mean, you take 20 damage, but it's actually better that you do it that way. Now, here is the easiest quick kill to get, and we might not get it, but hopefully we do. We did not get it. Okay, so I don't know what causes it exactly, but sometimes when you throw that platform directly down towards the direction of the Phantom, he will actually instantly die from it. I don't know if he needs to take like physical damage from the platform itself going right through him before it explodes for it to actually kill him. But in this particular case, it did not kill him. So we actually failed to get the quick kill there. Kind of unfortunate, but again, even if it does happen, just kill everything on screen while you wait for his iframes and then just start damaging him. Better to get the ads out of the way and not have to worry about whether or not you're going to get hit or not. Now, as soon as the screen starts scrolling right there, I have to slide in that box. That allows me to get some optimal... It allows me to get some optimal kicks in there without taking an accidental hit or an accidental kick off that first mech that you saw there. You're going to see more mechs in a moment here. There we go. There's another one. Also, the third oil drum there has a minion kind of hiding underneath it. It's not explodable. And now we begin the endurance. This is probably the most likely place you're going to get thrown. That was bad. I had to stop there. Okay, so that wasn't... that actually was not the most optimal endurance. Having to stop for mechs and not... kind of unsure whether the mech was going to spawn or not a few kicks prior. It just... it's a hard section to optimize, and a lot of things can happen. It's very easy to get anti-aired. It's very easy to get kicked by a random minion or shot at by a random laser. And just accidentally missing a kick on a mech can also happen in that section. It's pretty tough, but really, again, it's really a test of endurance. Being able to kick forward, shoot a flame chaser ahead of you, to be able to kill any minions that may show up. And that's kind of the whole entire point of the endurance, as I would like to call it. Now, the Smash Daisuke fight, again, this is another fight that's just horrible for, it's horrible for the lightsaber users. Flame Chaser, it's a little bit easier. I stick to this bottom corner here in case Smash Daisuke gives me a good pattern. And what a good pattern is is this spiral attack, which he is not doing. Maybe he might do it here. Nope. No, there he is. He's doing it now. Unfortunately, because he did it on that side, he actually got a hit on me. I'm actually kind of don't know how I killed him there, but I guess a physical attack did it. Either way, we got him out of this phase. And that's kind of phase 1 in a nutshell. So usually the most ideal phase 1 is when he leaps into the air, chucks a grenade, the ideal phase 1 is when he jumps in the air, gets hit by my flame chaser, triggers into iframes, but then starts doing a spiral attack over here. Because he just gets so much damage put onto him, and it just forces him out of phase 1 extremely fast. And that's kind of... I've had a tendency to get pretty consistent patterns like that when I'm hanging out and chilling in this corner here, just ducking. And sometimes he can also swoop his drill missile attack and completely miss me on the other side. That's an ideal scenario, but if I know he's too low, I know I'm close enough to the wall here and just kick off of him. But that's kind of how phase 1 goes. Now, as for phase 2, what's going to happen is I'm going to try and jump up to bait this guy to do a jump attack. And then I'm going to grab him midair and throw him to this corner here. And then I'm going to proceed to keep baiting him to jump up. And the way you bait him to jump up is by jumping before he lands on the ground. It's kind of a scary strat. Let's see if we can properly show it off. So let's see here. See now, okay. So here is what I do, and when I know to jump up initially. When he throws up the arms like this, as soon as he finishes that, I jump. Because I know if I don't, he's going to grab me. And I know if I do it, I'm going to bait him to jump up. Like so. Like just like that, he jumps up. His jump attack is extremely harmless. You can get hit by it, but if you're directly below him, he's never going to hit you. And then I throw him like that. Oh, okay, he didn't jump up with me. But, so I kind of messed it up, but now I've got him right where I want him, up to the right side of the screen, and up in the air like so. So while I bait him to jump up, like I did here, I'm going to try to damage him with a conventional weapon, and right before he lands on the ground, I'm going to grab him and throw him down and right, and keep him in this right corner. And then as soon as I throw him, I immediately jump right after. And it will bait him to jump up. If he stands there and just kind of starts laughing at you, I jump again and just keep jumping until he's eventually going to be baited to jump again. Like this. You see? Yeah, see? Like, things like that, he can troll you sometimes doing that, but as long as you keep jumping, he's not going to get you. And that's kind of the whole thing with that fight. You want to jump before he lands. You want to grab him before he lands, because if you don't grab him before he lands, he's going to grab you and throw you. And then that's just bad times. You just do not want that to happen. And then, of course, when you do successfully grab him, throw him the correct direction. And then as soon as you land the throw, just immediately jump. Do not think about it. Jump. Just jump. No direction. Just jump straight and stationary. Jump straight up. And if he does not respond with a jump immediately, jump again. Do not think about anything like him doing a different pattern of some sort. It's generally not a good idea to try and challenge him or try to challenge him with anything other than baiting him with jumps. I'm not sure if you can grab him while he's laughing and just standing there. It's something I haven't really bothered to try. Maybe eventually I might consider looking into that, but I think that is probably the best way you can handle that fight. You know, aside from that one single instance where I got thrown. And that is the saving yellow. That's the level right there. It's pretty standard. There's not really too much to that stage. It's a very easy stage to mess up, but again, it's very integral to have a good pattern on Smash Dice Gate and get at least the yellow Phantom quick kill in order to have a competitively solid time in this stage. So now this is the point where I really don't have to pause the game anymore. Well, I do, but not for a while, because coming up is probably the longest auto-scroller in the entire game, and there's really no true speed tech. This actual auto-scroller is even easier for lightsaber users. Flame Chaser actually is probably the only weapon that really needs to be detailed in this stage at all, to be perfectly honest. But what's going to happen here? I'm going to go through all this. This can't be skipped. You have to just speed through the text as fast as possible. But what we want to do with this auto-scroller, we want to avoid as much lag as possible. So we're going to be playing most of this pacifist, which is good practice, because I still strongly believe that doing this particular part pacifist might be the most optimal way of doing it on expert. That's my theory on it anyways. Of course, these turrets here would be a little bit of a problem, but perhaps with enough practice, one could do it. On easy mode, of course, it's fairly easy. You can see all this firepower and all this stuff. Not really anything I have to truly worry about. This section here is very easy to do pacifist. This top corner here is a pretty safe spot. And now comes one of the recurring enemies from earlier. Familiar? Should be. Good old timer on. Make sure you're spamming the fire button as soon as the timer on starts exploding, because when you do that, you force the results screen to load much sooner. And again, we want to try and not shoot anything. We want to try and minimize the lag as much as possible. Now we want to start damaging. So again, control is extremely important with Flame Chaser in this section, which makes it a lot harder to optimize, admittedly, compared to lightsaber. But yeah, that's kind of the order of things. Obviously, understanding the order of those ships is very important when learning the game. But that's really just a matter of practice. It's really not something I have to highlight, where they spawn, what order they spawn in. It's always the same. Also, as you can tell, this is a safe spot to stand. Very helpful in harder difficulties. I probably don't even have to do this on easy mode, but it's, just for the sake of trying to make sure I collectively have my mind on the idea of explaining things. I'm just kind of just throwing out more of the safe strategies involved for anyone who's potentially a new runner. Here's some health to grab if you need it. You may or may not need it. And again, here's another section you can do pacifist. You can see it's not really very difficult. There's far less asteroids to deal with. Nice hit. But yeah, attacking anything here with Flame Chaser is going to cause a bit of lag. So it's better to even just take a little bit of damage and just not cause that lag. So here's our meteor snake. Or sorry, our asteroid snake. It's going to kind of chase us around, but he's not going to succeed very well. There's a series of turrets here. We're gonna just slowly inch our way up and then do a little boost there using the C button. That's what the jump button does. And here's our first boss fight. Our first actual, technically this is our first mini boss fight. And what he's gonna do is he's gonna shoot out a main bullet. And that bullet will sometimes stop and explode into 1,000, or like 6 smaller bullets. So obviously we want to kill that thing before it becomes an actual factor. That was not how you want to do it. But yeah, you can see it's pretty hard to actually control. The important thing with using Flame Chaser here is you need to damage both the body as well as kill any projectiles that might shoot out. With Lightsaber, it's much easier because you just get kind of close enough to him and know that the laser will damage both. It will damage both the projectile as well as the body, the main fight. It's the body of the mini boss itself. We might have... Nope, we did not have any missiles activate there. There are also 2 missile turret or missile dispensers that surround that mini boss fight, but we did not get those that time. So now we're on to this part. And as you can see, there's this huge line of enemies, and there's a couple turrets. We want to destroy the first 2 because dodging the first 2 becomes much harder, as you can see here. But we want to leave this third one alone, and then destroy it once we're past the line of enemies. Here's some more health in case you need it. And I'm not sure why I'm damaging these things. Well, it doesn't really lag it too much. You can see this part here can be done pacifist pretty easily. As long as you're staying to the right side, or the left side of the screen, or the left side of the border of the screen, you can actually despawn those missiles very, very easily. You can kill all these things on easy mode. I'm actually doing this much harder, but really with Flame Chaser, you can literally just switch to Chaser and just kill everything before they ever become a threat at all, and it doesn't really cause any lag. So if you want an easier way of mitigating the lag on this stage with Flame Chaser, just switch to Chaser. Just straight Chaser. It does a lot of damage. More damage than you might think on the smaller guys. But now that we're past that huge pack, now we just have a few missiles here that will explode into many bullets. And now we're on to our refight with the 7 forces. This fight is quite a bit different. He uses all 7 of his phases here. Whichever phases he uses is pretty much dependent on what he feels like doing. Obviously, they do a myriad of different things, but really the important thing is which one causes the most lag. Bird phase, or Eagle Force, is the worst phase for that, so you do not want that. Unless it shows up briefly for like half a second, that's the only time you want to see Eagle Force. Otherwise, it's going to be laggy. This phase is also kind of laggy. You don't want him to be in this phase for that long, but he does have a very favorable pattern. Yep, see? So this is kind of a bad phase right now because he's kind of chasing me down. And this Eagle Force is staying around for a while. For definitely a long while. Holy! This guy loved his Crab Force. So, there's a number of things he can do. He didn't get to really show off a whole lot of what he could do, but the Urchin Force, he stands in place and shoots all these lasers in different directions. That's what the Urchin Force does in this fight. The Gun Force will do the same thing, except it will shoot bigger bullets at you, and they hurt you a heck of a lot more. I do not like Gun Phase in that fight at all. He can also do Tiger Force, which is basically an irrelevant phase, or irrelevant form, because all he really will do is just charge to the left side of the screen. Tail is much the same way. He'll just kind of twirl his tail around and slowly move to the right side of the screen. So it's much the same way as Tiger Force. Usually Green likes to do Tiger and follow it up with Tail Force right after. Tail Force is also somewhat laggy because of the extra effects tied to it. But as you can see, for the most part, he just used his Soldier Force, his Eagle Force, and Crab Force there. And that's really all you got to see from him. You could tell, saw really well why you don't want Eagle Force at all. It's a very, very laggy phase, especially for a lengthy period of time. So overall, that was actually a very awful fight in terms of luck. But the good news is that he died in the bottom corner here. And the sooner he gets off screen after he's defeated, the sooner you progress to this part of the level. So on that note, we did have some fortunate bit of luck. So that's the good news. So we weren't totally screwed over by his pattern, but it still was not a very good pattern. As for this part here, again, this is the same thing as the endurance. There are some enemies here. You just want to keep physical attacking. If you get grabbed, you get grabbed. It doesn't really matter. Just shake it off. Whether you have to shake the D-pad back and forth, whatever you have to do to get shake free of any potential grab by these blue phantoms or whatever. Do what you got to do. That's all there is to that section. There is more weapons you can grab from that section, but it's not... At this point, you should have your weapons. If you do die on this trio of fights, well, you shouldn't die on this trio of fights. It's very unlikely you will. So, to start things off, we have 3 fights. The unit of Hammer, that's the first fight. Unit of Dragon, and unit of Runner. Unit of Hammer is going to start by swinging. He's going to come from the background and then quickly swing to the front and middle here. And what he's going to do is he's going to slightly lift himself up here and shoot lasers down at you. This fight is very much preferable to have lightsaber in because you're able to damage the unit of Hammer with the laser as well as deflect, as well as get rid of his lasers simultaneously. Whereas, yeah, you have that option with Flame Chaser, but it requires some pretty precise controls. We'll see how we can handle this fight. Okay, so I'm already looking bad. Although for some odd reason he went over there. Usually he's supposed to slam directly onto your position. But I guess his AI got confused or some sort and he just slammed down. So that was actually a really solid fight. I got kind of lucky there. I should not have had that happen, but I got pretty lucky there. You also want to stop firing Flame Chaser as soon as his unit of Hammer dies, because it does cause lag. That's another important thing. The other important thing of note, you can potentially lose like 20 to 25 seconds on this fight. If he decides to, instead of slamming down onto the ground, he could end up lifting himself up into the ceiling here and start going into the background, just swinging around, and it's a 20 to 25 second phase, and it's just a huge time waster. I almost would challenge the idea that even at this point for me, it would be an instant reset, at least compared to the 29:19 run that I currently have as a personal best time in this category. But that is the unit of Hammer fight. You want to get away from him because he's going to retaliate with an attack. And now we're on to the second fight, the unit of the Dragon. You want to get onto this, right up to this right wall here. And there's the unit of Dragon. So he's going to kind of twirl around this, middle nucleus part of the background here. He's going to do this twice. Now on the third round, he's going to come right up into here. I think spawn right about here. I want to jump up kick off of this wall and do some additional physical damage. And there are a couple things that the unit of dragon will do during this. After the first swing there, if he could end up going back into the background, which is not what you want, or he could kind of chill out, hang out, and start throwing out projectiles, which is what you do want. If you do get this pattern, it's basically free damage, and then as soon as his movement goes, he's going to start swinging down lower and allow you to kick him again on the downward swing there. Hopefully I will show that off if he gives me a good pattern. So there's the kick. Nope, he goes into the background. So sadly, I did not get to show that off. That was a terrible fight. I was hoping... So, what I was trying to hope for is that after the initial going back into the background, after taking a little bit of damage, I wanted to try and meet up with him and do another physical attack. So I can try to finish the job, but obviously it did not work out there. So obviously, you don't want to replicate what I did there, which is going to be confusing in a tutorial setting. Unfortunately, because I do this on console, I can't really properly demonstrate Flame Chaser strats on emulator due to input lag. Generally, the idea is he'll... yeah, there we go. Generally, he'll start with 3 loops around this middle part here, and then he'll spawn up here. You kick off the wall, you kick him, do a little bit of physical damage to him, and then try to damage him with conventional weapons. And whether he decides to move back into the background or not, you got to prepare for another strike of physical damage when he reaches back onto the right side. Obviously, I failed to do that, but that's kind of the idea behind the fight. It's obviously much easier to set it up if he did stick around at the front, but obviously he did not do that. So now, Unit of Runner is actually probably one of the easiest fights in the game. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. Normally what I do is I have to hang around here and try to physical attack him as he's coming on screen. I don't know if this actually matters. I think you have to wait till boss's vitality message shows up to actually start doing damage to him. So instead I'm going to wait right here and hopefully maybe get some optimal damage on him so that I can actually kill him in a 2 cycle. So we're going to wait for him. And I'm going to try high jump. And you can see, look how easy that was. So, yeah, there you go. You got your spot to stand. So, actually, let me just see if I can... Alright, so where I stood there, I see these 2 guardrails here, and they're just a slight bit more to the left compared to this little nucleus here in the background. That's where I stood, and I held up, and then did a neutral jump straight up, and immediately pressed C again to get as much kick damage as I could, and just try to finish the jump on him. And then what's going to end up happening is he is going to veer off into the background again, preparing for his swing attack. You have to anticipate where he's going to move when he does the swing attack, when he does this little swinging arm attack, ball attack thing, or whatever he does. Well, let's see, where was I going to go with that? Yeah, so you have to kind of anticipate where he's going to come back and be damageable when he's preparing to throw that little thing, that little ball, energy ball thing at you. How that attack works is he'll start by throwing it in a kind of a 30 degree angle for his first attack, and then he's going to throw directly straight with his second attack. And that's kind of how his attack pattern works for that. It doesn't actually track your current position, so you could be right in on him and just do straight up physical damage on him, and you can see how quickly he died from that. But yeah, how that setup worked was just standing right here and just waiting for him to come to me, and then just try to get as much physical damage as I could on him, and then just try to anticipate where exactly he was going to move, and then try to respond with physical attacking as soon as he would show up again. And that's kind of how I did do the unit. That's how the unit of runner fight should go. But obviously, it's not the easiest fight. You can easily screw it up. Just know that for sure. While it is considered to be the easiest fight in the game, it is pretty hard to do it optimally. Like, you can screw it up pretty easily. But this time, though, we were able to demonstrate that fight done optimally. So now, we are now on to the final stretch of the run. This is the boss rush. Sliding into that stack of boxes will kill it in a single slide. And that's the important thing with that. So now here, we want to try to get the text off the screen and spawn this guy as soon as possible. And then we want to try and be on this side. And the reason why we want to be right here is because this guy is somewhat random with his attack patterns. Sometimes, if you attack him from this side, he'll sometimes do a charge attack. He'll sometimes duck himself down and shoot lasers and completely miss you if you're ducking. He can also softly walk towards you. Like, his pattern becomes very random. However, if you are behind him, he will always do the same exact pattern. He will always softly walk behind him. He'll softly backwards. Okay, let's rephrase that. He will do the crab walk backwards. He will crab walk backwards, basically, and try to crush you on the side here, which doesn't kill you, by the way. Don't worry about that. What we want to do is we want to bait him to do that so we can get some physical attacks on him. I'm going to jump up with specific timing to do a jump attack and do some good physical damage on these guys. And then I'm going to try to high jump over and land on right where they're sitting there, and then start doing slide attacks while they're partially off screen. So let's see if we do that. Nope. Okay, so that was kind of the idea, except I got hit there at the start, so it kind of messed up their pattern, and they started walking forward there. But it also set them up again. And the second time I did it the correct way, for the most part. Generally speaking, a perfect fight will be me kicking, and then me doing a high jump to directly land on top of them, and slide in on top of them to do some extra physical damage while they're partially off screen and kill them right then and there. The world record 29, which is 29:19, does the fight perfectly. So if you want an idea of how to do that fight right, watch my 29:19 run. It gives you a better idea of exactly how that fight needs to be. Now, that's the first part of the fight. Second part of the fight, you want to be positioned right here. I usually have the back part of my hair lined up with this little doohickey right part of the U thing, whatever this is supposed to be. I just position myself and duck here, because that actually causes this guy here to land on the back part of me, and that makes him perfectly susceptible to being thrown pretty much over and over again. So he's gonna boot his buddy here to the side, and now I'm just gonna tap the fire button, and then it becomes a matter of reacting to what he's gonna do. He also can't jump off the screen, so he's kind of screwed when that happens. Also, jumping straight into doing a physical kick attack will cause these boxes to get disintegrated as well. So that's another thing. Better, and don't kick off of them. Do not kick off of those boxes. That is just not the right thing to do. I just do standard kicks. I don't do any high jumps there. I just do standard kicks and let the second kick land into that stack of boxes and just destroy it like that. And then as for this section here, it's actually faster to sometimes take a hit to these energy balls as opposed to actually dodging them via this upper guardrail here. So I'm going to do that here. So I'm actually going to slide instead, take a tiny small loss to hit stun there. You can see I quickly recovered from it. Okay, so this is probably the important part. This is probably something a lot of people don't know about, but was on a guardrail there and I slid instead of actually dropping down. And what causes that? What causes you to drop down is if you are not holding left or right and you press down and the jump button. That causes you to drop down a guardrail. But what causes you to slide on a guardrail instead is holding left or right and down, and then the jump attack. Then the C button, or whatever button is designated as the jump button. That caused you to slide on a hangable guardrail of some sort. So that's how you were able to slide, even in a situation like that. If I had not held if I didn't hold right there, I would have not slid there. So yeah, do keep that in mind. And then from here, I'm just gonna try to jump attack through these because I can't actually slide there effectively. And I think after a certain amount of times you get hit by these balls of energy, you get knocked back and actually lose a little bit of time. But that's that section. This section here, pretty simple. Just standard jump. Now, this is the pink refight, and I position. So the first thing you might know is that I switch to standard fire here. I actually get rid of Flame Chaser here, and this is why this fight somewhat favors lightsaber users over Flame Chaser. Is they don't have to make this switch, but with Fire Chaser, you have to actually switch to fire, straight up fire. And that allows you to keep damaging this boss here while kind of staying within a certain range. But the idea here, what you want to do is you want to stand with your feet lined up like this. Just like you can see how you see just a tiny little bit of this thing right here, just to the tiny couple of pixels. Basically, the heel of your foot is like a pixel or two to the right here, compared to the to this edge of this little building right here. You want to position yourself there because it allows you to be a certain kick distance from. It allows you to be the correct kick distance without missing your kicks and without missing your kicks and without kicking back off of pink. So but that's kind of the positioning for this fight. Let's see if I can do this right. But the idea behind this fight is every time pink pulls back the claw, you want to jump up in the air and react with a physical kick. You don't want to hold any directions. You want to basically jump and kick as soon as pink retracts the claw and is getting ready to use a physical attack. And you want to keep doing this. You want to maintain this position as much as possible. If you're waiting for the claw attack, and and they're not doing it, they decide to jump up instead. You know, you got your flame to keep damaging them. But basically, you're just trying to wait for the claw attack and then launch a physical attack in response to it so that the kick provides you enough iframes to be able to dodge any potential damage that can be done using this claw attack. There's a different claw attack that can be done. The timing's a little bit different. So there's the jump, and there's the kick. And you can see that the timing is a little bit tricky. Sometimes the claw will lift itself overhead and try to do an overhead smash with the claw. The timing is a little bit trickier, a little bit longer, to be precise. But that's kind of the idea of the pink fight, of the pink refight. It's all about waiting and just baiting the claw attacks and then attacking precisely. You do not want to start your jump attack too late, otherwise you do risk kicking off of Pink's body. The machine that they're controlling here. Because if you do kick too late, you could potentially kick off of it, and that does make the fight much more challenging. So it's all about key intricate timing, but standing in the spot that I stand at does allow you the opportunity to optimize damage with your physical attack and not worry about potentially being kicked or being damaged by the claw there. So it is a fight that's going to take a little bit of practice, but it should become second nature after a little bit of it. Now, this section here coming up, you can probably already tell Orange is ready to leave the scene. You know he's coming up next, and he's ready. I'm going to start... When I come to this section here, I start by throwing a Flame Chaser here to damage this lower guy here. And then pretty much... Okay, well, I did that part improperly, but I want to do a high jump onto this main platform here and then begin my physical string attacks again in order to keep my forward momentum going. And, alright, now comes probably the worst fight for lightsaber runners, I think, in the entire run. This is the Orange refight. I would probably have to make a separate video for the lightsaber runners just to give an idea of just how much different the fights kind of translate. But the idea, what we want to do with the Orange refight is we want to try and start by doing a slide attack into him. As soon as we see Boss's Vitality message show up at the top here, or sorry, maybe I should have my mouse cursor in the right spot. We've seen the Boss's Vitality message show up. When we see that show up, and he should start flexing his muscles when he reaches here, that's when we want to start damaging him. And what we want to start with is a slide attack for some extra physical damage. Then, as soon as we finish with that slide, we want to activate a Flame Chaser onto him. Let's see if we can do that properly. So there's that slide I did for some extra physical damage. And then I try to unleash a Flame Chaser right where he's standing, and this allows him to get flinched. Or it puts him into hit stun and gives me just enough time to throw him. Like so. And then as soon as I throw him down, I immediately jump onto the second platform. And the next thing, what he's probably going to do in response to this is he's going to walk towards me and do the pillar attack. Oh, no, he did the jump. Okay, so now what's going to happen... Oh, man, okay. I got kind of taken aback by all that. Okay, so that's the attack I thought he was going to do initially. And sadly, I'm not probably going to be able to show off the actual main strat. Again, it's going to be very hard to actually demonstrate the ideal way of showing this fight now, but Basically, if he does the pillar attack, you want to bait him to do it, and then you want to shoot him while he's doing it. Because while he's doing it, it doesn't actually activate, or it doesn't begin triggering his hit stun, which leads him closer to his iframes. It doesn't lead him towards triggering his iframes. So what we want to do here is bait him to do that, damage him, and then immediately stop. Because when he starts doing this, he gets closer to activating his iframes. And we don't want him to activate his iframes. We want to have him keep getting damaged consistently. And that's kind of the response to him doing his pillar attack, which is that attack you just saw. Now, what he did instead of what I thought he was going to do, he jumped up instead. That jump attack does not do any damage. You are free to just light him up like a Christmas tree with physical attacks. And as long as you keep that chain going, he can just... What you could do is do some physical damage to him as he's arcing his jump up from one side to the other. And then while you're still in midair, he could end up responding with another jump up. And you could basically just cycle chain his AI to keep doing this attack. And then basically just drain his health down to nothing in like no time flat. And that's how you have to do that fight. It's very difficult, and I'm pretty sure you can do that same baiting trick with the lightsaber. The real reason why lightsaber has a harder time is that you can't actually follow up a slide attack with a grab and throw downwards. You have to just do some conventional weapon damage to trigger iframes, and then just try to bait him to jump. That's kind of how you have to do it. I don't know any other way of doing it. I would have to do more testing on lightsaber. But let's see what happens in the rest of this fight. Okay, this is, yep. Okay, now he's going to start doing this attack, and you see when he does that attack, that's when you can unleash more physical damage on him, and you can see how quickly he died from that. And don't worry about the explosion too much. If your health is in good shape like mine was, you can challenge that explosion any day. He's not really a threat at that point because he's already at the point where he's just a couple hits from death. But that's kind of the idea behind the fight. I know I didn't get to show it off properly. Again, it looks like you will have to see the world record run to see somewhat the idea of what I do in that fight, what I kind of try to bait out in that fight. But it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky learning how to do it. So now that we have dealt with the orange refight, we're gonna high jump kick and try to get through this as fast as possible. And then we want to try and position our foot right about, I'm gonna see if I can try to highlight it. What you want to do here, you want to try and have your foot not on the very edge of this platform, but a little further to the right. And that allows you to be just far enough in to be close enough to hitting black 2 with physical damage. This is a very key and important skip. This saves like 15 seconds if you get it. And hopefully I do. I'm probably going to get a little bit closer just to ensure that I know I'm going to get it. But essentially, what's going to happen is black's going to show up. He's going to show up, throw up at the top of the ceiling there. He's going to show up down here, and then I'm basically going to just physical damage him to death. Force him out of phase 1 pretty much instantly, and force him to do the laser attack, which is his phase 2 attack. So let's see if we get it. Hopefully we do. I really hope I don't fail this. Actually, I'm not going to move forward. I'm actually totally fine. Yep. So that's exactly what happens. So I'll show that position again. So not right on the edge. If you want to be just have the heel basically, oh man, I can't even see it. I guess just line up the edge of your your foot here with these lines of these I guess white or yellow lines here. I guess they'd be lights on the platform here. That's kind of what you probably should look to line yourself up with, is that stuff right there. Make sure you don't have your foot too far close to this edge here where I'm pointing at right now. Otherwise, you're going to be too far away to hit this guy, and you'll end up missing an entire line of damage, probably the third kick would be my guess. And if you miss that, it's over. Like, he is going to go back up the top of the screen, and you're going to miss the Black 2 skip altogether. And if you're too far to the right side of the screen, what'll end up happening instead is you will kick off of Black 2 and then fall into this pit here. And that is also not good. You actually lose a lot of time for that. So really, in short, you know, not quite to the edge, just a little further to the right from the edge. My bad. I make sure the rightmost or the leftmost part of your foot here is more aligned with these 4 lights here, and not aligned with the edge here further to the left. You want to be just close enough that you are confident your kicks will actually hit, and you don't want to be too far to the right where you risk kicking off of the body of Black. And that's basically the fight. Oh. And also I also seem to, every time I do it that way, I seem to also get a fast elevator spawn. So my best advice is try to copy exactly what I did there. Like, please absolutely copy what I do there. And even just stand still for like a brief moment after Black 2 is killed, and then start moving right, would be probably my best advice if you really, really, really want to actually have a preferable elevator. Because I swear I seem to get fast elevator ever since I've learned how to properly do the Black 2 skip. It's definitely something that's going to need a little bit of practice to learn how to do Black 2 skip. But it's once I figured out the right place to stand, I have had desirable results every single time. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for Black 2. Now we're on to the green fight. There is a stun lock that is associated with this guy. Not sure if I'm going to get it. We'll see if we do. We do got it. So that's the thing with this fight. Sometimes Black, or sometimes Green just can't do anything. He gets stuck in this horrible position where he's actually permanently going to take damage and he can't break out of it. And we got him right where we want him to be. And I guess I somewhat use this little light moon to be positioned somewhat just a little bit before being aligned with it, but having my hand and the gun just a little bit further ahead of the leftmost part of this white little moon here. But I don't think it really matters. I think the stun lock is just kind of a random thing. I'm not really sure how it works. In fact, I don't even know who found out about this, but this is actually a pretty crazy skip. I'm glad I got to show this off, but I think perhaps it might be a good idea, however, to show the backup strap, which I think probably is more beneficial for newer runners, people who might actually learn this. But now that you've seen that the stun lock's actually possible, that is what it's supposed to look like. If you want to go for the stun lock, you know, you are free to try it, but I'm sure you probably might want to back up just in case you fail it. What I do is, whoops. Whoa, hello. I don't know why I keep sliding. But basically I jump up. And just keep doing that. Basically, every single time he's recovering, when he takes enough damage and his iframes are triggered, he will actually kind of go into a little bit of a pose, and he's in somewhat hit stun, trying to recover. That's your time to jump up to the other platform and just wait for him to jump up with you. Sometimes he'll be a little bit of a troll and throw shurikens at you, but usually he's going to respond by jumping onto the same platform you're standing on. You want to respond to him as he's doing that. That's the backup strat, and it does work out just fine if you miss the stun lock. But that's kind of the idea, what you just saw there, how I handle it. Obviously, at the start, I kind of struggled there by doing all these intricate sliding physical attacks. That's not what you're supposed to do. But the latter part of that fight there, that's kind of how you do this fight with the backup strats. So now we're just going. We have only one more fight now to do. And there is actually not much to this next fight. It's actually very, very easy. And when I tell you where I stand, it will become pretty obvious why it's a pretty simple fight. And it doesn't really require too much things to explain. I'm going to just wait for that cutscene to play out here. And then Basically, we want to position ourselves right about here. In fact, maybe even just right about there. Okay, so this is the last fight of the game. There is not much to explain with this fight. He does. This is the gold and silver fight. And what makes this fight kind of interesting is that the main body, gold and silver himself, is indestructible. You can't actually damage him. The only way you can damage him is through... actually, I just wanted to make sure I was standing in the right spot here. The main thing you want to take into account with this fight is that the main body himself is... well, I'll just start by showing him. So that's gold and silver right there. That's his main body right there. He's completely indestructible. So how do you damage him? In order to damage gold and silver, you have to damage the 4 gems that activated him. And that's the actual weak point. So on top of having to deal with gold and silver shenanigans, how does one actually damage these 4 gems without it being a complete nuisance? Well, it's actually very simple. So here's the thing with gold and silver. He has a number of attacks. He can throw his fists into the ground and do some blue attack that just traces along the ground and explode on the side wall. And that's if you're far enough away. He can grab you. He can teleport and punch you. He can jump up in the air and try to anti-air you if you're trying to jump over him. He can also do this arm attack that shoots out this green spreader attack. And that's if you're close enough to him, but not close enough for him to grab you and throw you. What we're going to do here is we're going to manipulate his AI to do exactly what we want to do. And by doing what we're about to do... Okay, let me rephrase that. We're going to manipulate his pattern. And we want to bait him to do a particular attack that leaves him wide open and prevents him from doing anything else. And basically have him only do that attack until we force him back into the background. After a certain point in his health, he's going to only do one attack. When he's put into the background, he can't attack you anymore, and it's really just the gems you have to worry about at that point. So what we want to do to manipulate Gold and Silver's AI, his pattern, is we want to stand and align our back foot here with this light right here that my mouse cursor is pointing at. You can also somewhat use this little part of the equipment back in the background there as a guide, this thing that I'm kind of dragging my cursor along. That is also somewhat of a guide of where to stand. But this is where I'm standing now is kind of where you want to be. And what it will do is it will manipulate Gold and Silver to do the arm spreader attack. And it's going to manipulate him to do that arm spreader attack until he's forced back into the background, and then basically the fight becomes irrelevant at that point. It's just a matter of rolling the dice and see which gem is going to waste your time, be it due to lag or be it due to unavoidable damage or having to stop doing damage and duck. It's kind of a crapshoot on which of the 4 gems he's going to choose. But let's start with the first phase of the fight. All right, so here we're going to start. And so right now we've manipulated Gold and Silver's attack. You can see he's opening his hand there, and there's that spreader attack I was talking about. I am close enough to him to the point where this attack can't hit me, and he's not close enough to me to actually grab me. So I'm free to completely damage these 4 gems. And basically there's nothing Gold and Silver can do because I've manipulated his pattern just by proper positioning. And that's kind of how the fight goes for this first little bit. So now on to the next part of the fight. The gems start to surround him. Again, this is the same exact thing. Just keep damaging him. And now that we've gotten him, we've now done enough damage to the gems. Now we have forced Gold and Silver out of this particular phase. And now he's back into the background. And now we roll the dice. We got Chaser. So Chaser's the best possible luck because all Chaser's going to do is hang out at the top here with all the other gems and shoot an attack that causes no lag and is very easy to block with the whole flame chaser thing. Unfortunately, this blue gem here is kind of chilling out here, so this isn't optimal damage, unfortunately. But, you know, it is what it is. We take those. It's so much better than having blue gem, which can track down your positioning and cause you to get hit by laser. It's much better than force gem, where you're forced to duck and to stop shooting and duck and then start damaging the gems again. And it's also better than the flame gem, which causes an abhorrent amount of lag. So really, we got the best possible gem. This is the best possible luck. And you can see how basically we made that fight look like the biggest joke ever, when it's not really supposed to be that kind of fight. But yeah, that is the end of the run. That is Gunstar Heroes. And that finishes this tutorial. I hope y'all learned a few things about where to properly position yourself, how to properly manipulate. I know this took about 3.5 hours, so this was certainly an endeavor, I'm sure, to watch if you actually watched all the way to the end. But I do hope you all have learned a little something from this tutorial, and yeah. I hope maybe eventually, I might consider doing a second part to this tutorial, maybe highlight lightsaber strategies when I've somewhat come to a better understanding of that weapon combo and iron out a few strats to get more optimal strats and a more optimal run with that weapon combo. But that is going to do it for the Flame Chaser tutorial on easy mode. Thanks for watching, everybody.